Chapter 1084. The burly man in black armor was wrapped in a cloud of black mist, exuding a cold aura of death. He stood in the night sky 1,000 meters in front of Ji Tianxing, revealing only a pair of scarlet eyes that surged with a cold light. His body, limbs, and head were all wrapped tightly in black armor, not revealing a bit of skin or hair. Ji Tianxing knew that this person was the most mysterious and most powerful of the 6 demon marshals, the leader of the demon marshals, Demon Marshal Dark Knight. It was said that other than the ancient demon emperor, no one had seen his true face. Ji Tianxing had investigated the information of the 6 demon marshals before, and he had also heard of the legends of Demon Marshal Dark Knight. Therefore, when he saw Demon Marshal Dark Knight appear, he immediately saw through his identity. After all, Demon Marshal Dark Knight was wrapped in the 9 underworld armor, revealing only a pair of blood-red eyes. His appearance was very obvious. However, Ji Tianxing did not expect that Demon Marshal Dark Knight would suddenly appear when he was about to return to the Central Plains. In his opinion, the 3 demon marshals, Dark Knight, Duanhuan and Sky Barbarian, should be lying in ambush at the border between the Northern Desert and the Central Plains. Demon Marshal Dark Knight, how did you find my tracks and chase me here? Ji Tianxing looked at him vigilantly, his heart full of vigilance. Demon Marshal Dark Knight secretly released his soul power, sealing the night sky within a radius of 10 miles, quietly suppressing Ji Tianxing. He probably expected that Ji Tianxing had no way to escape and would definitely die tonight, so he was not in a hurry to make a move. He looked coldly at Ji Tianxing and said in a deep voice, "How can you imagine Ben Shuai's methods? Previously, Ben Shuai did think that you escaped to the south, so he went to the southern border to meet up with the other demon marshals to intercept you. However, you escaped to the border of the western wilderness, and the netherworld bees that Ben Shuai arranged at the border found your tracks and aura. Only then did Ben Shuai know that you actually turned around and escaped from the western wilderness." Demon General Dark Knight's voice was very peculiar. It was like the sound of metal colliding. It did not contain any emotion, and it was impossible to distinguish whether it was a man or a woman. When Ji Tianxing heard his words, he was suddenly enlightened. "So that's how it is. I have long heard that demonic Marshal Dark Knight has raised billions of underworld bees and spread them to every corner of the Tianxian land to collect information about various clans and powerhouses. Nothing that happens on the continent can escape your senses and probing. I didn't expect that even though I was extremely careful, I still couldn't hide it from you." He said this with a calm expression, but his mood was very heavy. He was considering how to escape. Demon Commander Dark Knight seemed to have seen through his thoughts and said in a low and cold tone, "With your insignificant strength, no matter how careful you are, it will be difficult for you to escape from Ben Shuai's palm. Don't even think about running away. Since this commander has already found you, you will definitely die tonight. Ben Shuai will give you 2 choices. Either you surrender now, and Ben Shuai will not kill you for the time being, and will take you back to the sacred mountain to see His Majesty the Demon Emperor. Or you resist stubbornly, and Ben Shuai will kill you on the spot, and take your soul back to report on the completion of the mission." Ji Tianxing grinned and said with a cold smile, "It seems that you don't understand me at all. The word, surrender, does not exist in my dictionary, Ji Tianxing. No matter how strong you are, I will fight to the death." When his voice fell, he suddenly took out the broken sword, and slashed at Demon General Dark Knight with all his strength. Divine sword draw, splitting mountains and rivers, sword draw style. The broken sword slashed at Demon General Dark Knight from bottom to top, and slashed out 100-meter-long sword light, which instantly tore apart the night sky. The sword light was dazzling, and it illuminated the area within a radius of 10 miles. The sword chi was incomparably sharp. Not only did it cut apart the night sky, it also broke the soul power secretly released by Demon General Dark Knight. In just an instant, the sword light arrived in front of Demon General Dark Knight and was about to hit him. However, Demon General Dark Knight's strength was far beyond Ji Tianxing's imagination, reaching an inconceivable level. When the sword light arrived, Demon General Dark Knight was still as calm as a mountain and as cold as ice. He actually did not dodge. He raised his palms and slapped out two giant black blades of light to meet the sword light head-on. Kaboom! Amidst the deafening collision, the giant black blades of light and the dazzling sword light collapsed at the same time, turning into fragments that splashed in all directions. The violent force actually sent Ji Tianxing flying 1,000 meters away, and he gasped for breath with a pale face. Demon General Dark Knight stood motionless in the night sky, as if nothing had happened. After Ji Tianxing stabilized himself, he looked at Demon General Dark Knight with eyes full of shock, and his heart was full of fear. Damn it! I used all my strength to unleash my strongest trump card, but it was easily neutralized by him? What level has his strength reached? 7th layer of the soul refining realm? Or the 8th? He was only at the 1st level of the soul refinement realm. Even if he used his strongest trump card, he could only match an expert at the 5th level of the soul refinement realm. Demon General Dark Knight's strength was mysterious and powerful, causing him to feel a strong sense of powerlessness in his heart. At this time, a murderous intent flashed in Demon General Dark Knight's eyes, and he shouted angrily, "Ji Tianxing, if you want to die, Ben Shui will fulfill your wish." As he spoke, he raised his palms again and slashed out two giant black blades of light. The 200-meter-long black blades of light carried an icy aura of death, as if they were the scythes of the Grim Reaper. Ji Tianxing's divine soul aura was locked by the blade of light. He only felt his whole body turn cold, and a strong sense of fear gushed out from his divine soul. He turned around and fled without hesitation, bursting out with his strongest strength and fastest speed to escape into the distance. However, just as he turned around and flew 1,000 meters away, the two black blades of light slashed at his head. At this critical moment, he had no time to think. He immediately unfolded his golden wings to protect himself. Bam bam! The two destructive black blades of light fiercely struck him, causing two loud and muffled sounds to erupt. He was immediately sent flying 12 miles away by the blade of light, tumbling into the vast forest. With a boom, 1,000-meter-wide crater was smashed into the dense forest, causing mud to splatter everywhere. Countless cracks spread around the crater, and everything within a radius of dozens of miles was trembling. Ji Tianxing lay at the bottom of the crater, his hair disheveled. Half of his body was covered in mud. His face was ghastly pale, and blood was constantly flowing out from the corner of his mouth. His internal organs had already been injured. The wings formed by Kenshin's battle robe had helped him block the fatal killing blow, but they had also exhausted their power. They became dim and retracted back into his body. This Kenshin's battle robe had helped him block countless fatal killing blows. Although the power of Kenshin's battle robe would be exhausted every time and retract back into his body, the battle robe would never be damaged, nor would it leave any marks. After 3 to 5 days, the battle robe's power would automatically recover, allowing him to use it again. Ji Tianxing had lost the protection of Kenshin's battle robe, and was even more unable to fight Demon Commander Dark Knight. Seeing Demon Commander Dark Knight fly across the sky and charge over again, he did not hesitate to burrow into the ground and use the Earth Escape technique to escape with all his might. With his current strength, he could only be crushed by Demon Commander Dark Knight. He had no right to counterattack. Chapter 1085. Ji Tianxing quickly shuttled through the ground, desperately escaping to the border of the central province. Demon Commander Dark Knight also chased him underground, chasing him as fast as lightning. The distance between the two sides was constantly closing, and Ji Tianxing's situation was also becoming more and more dangerous. Although he had already suffered internal injuries, and his internal organs had been shaken out of place, he did not dare to relax. However, he did not dare to relax in the slightest, nor did he have the time to suppress his injuries. He could only try his best to escape. An hour later, Demon Commander Dark Knight caught up to him and was only 1,000 meters away. Demon Commander Dark Knight indeed took action, releasing a vast and majestic power, controlling the earth within a radius of 3,000 meters to ruthlessly suppress Ji Tianxing. Swoosh! Immediately, the earth within 3,000 meters collapsed and shattered. The endless earth and rocks condensed into a huge boulder with a radius of 100 meters, wrapping Ji Tianxing inside. Under Demon Commander Dark Knight's control, the huge boulder drilled out of the ground and flew into the sky. Ji Tianxing sensed that something was wrong and immediately burst out with all his strength, ruthlessly shattering the huge boulder. Bang! With a dull sound, the huge boulder exploded from the inside, collapsing into millions of pieces that shot out in all directions. He had just escaped the bindings of the huge boulder and unhesitatingly flew through the night sky, fleeing into the distance. However, Demon Commander Dark Knight was already prepared. When he shattered the huge boulder, he ruthlessly slapped out a huge palm condensed from the black light of death. Bang! Ji Tianxing was sent flying by the huge palm of black light on the spot, and his whole body was wrapped in a layer of black qi of death. He only felt that his body was stiff, and his flesh and bones were about to be frozen stiff. He was unable to move at all. Moreover, the black qi of death had invaded his body, crazily eroding his flesh and bones, and devouring his vitality. In just a breath's time, his skin had turned black, and his eyes had become dim and lifeless. Fortunately, the heaven-mending orb in his mind released a dense white light in time, which flowed through his limbs and bones, warming his blood vessels and bones. When he flew 10 miles away, the black qi of death that had invaded his body was completely dispelled by the mysterious white light. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. Enduring his injuries, he hurriedly took out his soul magic sword and stepped on it to fly forward. Swish! The golden sword emitted a dazzling golden light, like a meteor streaking across the night sky, and soon flew far away. Demon General Dark Knight was not on guard against such a consummate skill. His speed actually increased several times, and in the blink of an eye, he flew 20 miles away. Ji Tianxing, you're doomed. You can't escape this calamity. Demon General Dark Knight's voice was ice cold as he shouted. Immediately, he burst out with his full power and turned into a hidden black light, chasing after Ji Tianxing. The two parties chased each other in the night sky, and the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Of course, as time passed, the two of them got closer and closer to the border of the Central Plains. 6 hours later, Demon Commander Dark Knight once again caught up with Ji Tianxing. He used his ultimate killer move and attacked Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing did his best to resist, but he was still unable to block Demon Martial Dark Knight's killing move. He was once again heavily injured and vomited blood, smashing into a mountain peak. The 1,000-jang-tall mountain collapsed on the spot, turning into a pile of ruins. Seeing that he was heavily injured and lying in the ruins, Demon General Dark Knight used his capturing technique to capture him and bring him back to the northern desert. At the critical moment, Ji Tianxing opened the third eye on his forehead and released a destructive thunderbolt. With a loud rumble, the lightning beam hit Demon Commander Dark Knight and sent him flying. Unfortunately, the 9 underworld armor Demon General Dark Knight was wearing blocked most of the power. Even if he was blasted into the ground by the thunderbolt, he was not injured at all. Ji Tianxing did not expect the thunderbolt spirit eyes to injure Demon General Dark Knight. He only hoped that it could buy him some time and give him a chance to escape. Taking advantage of the time when Demon General Dark Knight was sent flying, he turned around and fled without hesitation. He was already heavily injured and had consumed a lot of his magic power, so he entered the sword world and used the Burial of Heaven to drive the broken sword to escape. Swish! The half-meter-long black broken sword burst out with an unimaginable speed and instantly cut through the night sky, leaving Demon General Dark Knight far behind. Demon General Dark Knight was still unwilling to give up. After crawling up from the ruins, he shouted angrily and continued to chase. Unknowingly, a night passed. After dawn, Demon General Dark Knight was still crazily chasing after the broken sword. The two were still 30 miles apart. The Burial of Heaven's power was indeed vigorous. The flying speed of the broken sword was comparable to Demon General Dark Knight. In a short time, Demon General Dark Knight could not catch up at all. Ji Tianxing used his power to heal his injuries in the sword world. With the help of elixirs and his own recovery ability, he temporarily suppressed his injuries and recovered some of his vitality. While healing, he silently calculated in his heart, With the speed of the burial of heaven, Demon General Dark Knight can't catch up at all in 4 to 5 hours. However, the burial of heaven will also consume a lot of energy to fly with the broken sword. At most, it can last for a few more hours before its speed will decrease. At that time, it will be caught. Fortunately, I'm only 12 hours away from the border of the Central Plains. The border between the Western Wilderness and the Central Plains is guarded by divine generals under the imperial court, as well as an elite army of 300,000 stationed there. As long as I escape to the border, I'll be safe. No matter how strong Demon General Dark Knight is, he won't dare to attack the border defense line. Ji Tianxing knew that the divine general guarding the border between the Western Wilderness and the Central Plains was one of the 4 great divine generals, the illustrious divine general of the Western Wilderness, Yu Tianhong. This person's strength and reputation were a bit stronger than divine general Xiao Han. He was also a spirit refinement expert who had been famous for 200 to 300 years. A few months ago, when Ji Tianxing was in the Eastern Sea, he had met divine general Xiao Han. In his impression, divine general Wang Lin was a just and strict person, extremely dignified and intelligent. He was worthy of admiration and friendship. Since the divine general of the Western Wilderness was more famous than divine general Wang Lin, he must be more loyal to the imperial court and more upright. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing hurriedly used his divine sense to send a message to Burial of Heaven. Burial of Heaven, hold on for another 12 hours. As long as we escape to the border between the Western Wilderness and the Central Plains, we'll be able to escape safely. Divine General Yu Tianhong is guarding the border with an army of 300,000 under his command. He has built countless fortifications. No matter how strong Demon General Dark Knight is, he won't dare to attack the border alone. He'll definitely retreat. Burial of Heaven pondered for a moment, then said in a low voice, "No problem, I'll do my best to hold on until we reach the border." Ji Tianxing was finally relieved. He continued to circulate his energy to recover his injuries and magic power. Time passed quickly. The broken sword was still flying high in the sky, and Demon General Dark Knight was still in hot pursuit. Very quickly, 12 hours had passed. It was already evening, and the sun was setting in the west. Burial of Heaven's energy was rapidly depleted, and he was getting weaker and weaker. The broken sword was also getting slower and slower. However, Demon General Dark Knight was still full of energy, and his speed did not decrease at all. He was constantly closing the distance. Fortunately, 200 miles ahead, under the setting sun at the end of the horizon, a huge and majestic mountain range that was 10,000 meters tall appeared. The Mangu mountain range that stretched for millions of miles was the border between the Western Wilderness and the Central Plains. Chapter 1086. The Mangu mountain range had existed since the ancient times 10,000 years ago. It was said that the gods of the ancient times had once fought a great battle here. Today, there were still many amazing sights left in this ancient mountain range that stretched for millions of miles. There were giant footprints that were 10 miles long, huge sinkholes that were 100 miles wide, and several huge gullies that were hundreds of miles long. There were even unfathomable black holes that led to the depths of the earth. These miracles and sights that were hard to understand were all believed to be the traces left behind by the ancient gods' war. In the lofty and steep mountain range, there was a huge citadel called Mangu City. The citadel was guarded by the divine generals of the Western Wilderness and 100,000 soldiers. The other 200,000 soldiers were divided into thousands of teams and scattered in the mountain range that stretched for 100,000 miles. This 100,000 miles long border defense line was gradually built and perfected by the human imperial court and hundreds of thousands of soldiers after thousands of years of hard work. 1,000 years ago, the demon army broke through the Western Wilderness and tried to kill their way into the Central Plains. It was this defense line that stopped the demon army's advance. Because of this, Ji Tianxing was full of confidence in this defense line. He was sure that Demon Commander Dark Knight would not dare to break through the defense line, let alone chase into Mangu City. Whoosh! The broken sword cut through the sky like a stream of light. Bathed in the golden sunset, it rushed toward the impregnable pass in the Mangu mountain range. The impregnable city was located halfway up the mountain. To the west was a 3,000-meter-high cliff, and to the east was a huge canyon. After passing through the canyon, they would enter the central plains. Although they were still dozens of miles away, Ji Tianxing could already see countless flags fluttering in the dark brown Mangu city. A large number of soldiers in fine iron armor were moving in groups or stationed in various sentry posts. 50 miles, 40 miles, 30 miles, 20 miles, the broken sword was getting closer and closer to Mangu City, and the scenery became clearer. Ji Tianxing could even feel a vigorous and iron-blooded aura coming toward him. After 10 breaths, the broken sword finally flew to the huge gate of Mangu City. However, the black gate that was 100 meters tall was tightly shut, and hundreds of elite soldiers were stationed on the city wall. On the city wall, there was a tower every 10 meters. There were huge ballistas, catapults, and sword formations. The defense was very tight. Moreover, the entire Mang city was protected by a soul-grade array. Even a powerhouse like Demon Commander Dark Knight would find it difficult to break the array's defense in a short time. The broken sword floated in front of the city gate, and Ji Tianxing flew out. Holding the broken sword in his hand, he stood in the air and looked at the guards above the city gate. He shouted, "I am Ji Tianxing, the domain lord of the Tianxin region. I am being chased by the demon commander. Open the city gate." His tone was dignified and austere. With just a few words, he made clear his identity and situation. However, the numerous guards on the city wall all stared at him with complicated gazes. They were all stunned on the spot, and no one dared to open the city gate. However, a few guards quickly left the city wall and returned to the city to report the news. Ji Tianxing shouted anxiously. He even took out the seal of mountains and rivers to prove his identity as the domain lord of the Tianxin region. However, the guards on the city wall were whispering to each other. They were shocked, confused, doubtful, and surprised. At this moment, Demon Commander Dark Knight caught up. Swoosh! He rushed out of the city gate without any scruples and stood 1,000 meters away from Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, you are too naive. Do you think you can get away smoothly by escaping to the border? Even if you escape back to the central province, Benshui can still catch you and bring you and the Saintess back to the northern desert, let alone a border checkpoint. Demon Commander Dark Knight shouted coldly with the sound of metal clashing. His body released a black fog of demon chi that soared into the sky, exuding a bone-chilling cold of death. Suddenly, the sky outside the city gate was covered by the black fog of demon chi, and it became gloomy and terrifying. When the hundreds of guards on the city wall saw Demon Commander Dark Knight appear, they were immediately filled with horror and shouted, "Heavens! It's the Demon Clan! The Demon Clan is invading!" Quickly report to the Divine General, the Demon Clan's experts are outside the city. Everyone be careful, don't be corroded by the demon chi. Everyone be on guard, quickly light the beacon and activate the defense. Instantly, the countless guards were thrown into chaos. They hurriedly ran away, letting out anxious and frightened shouts. Fortunately, the city wall was protected by the defensive array. Otherwise, these guards would have been scared out of their wits by Demon Commander Dark Knight and fled in panic. Demon Commander Dark Knight ignored the guards on the city wall and stared at Ji Tianxing. His eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty and cruel cold light. "Ji Tianxing, die!" He shouted angrily and waved his palms, shooting out dozens of black lights of death toward Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing's expression changed drastically as he quickly dodged. He waved his broken sword and slashed out a sky full of sword lights to block the deadly black light. The cold sword shadow and the black lights of death collided fiercely, and muffled pang-pang-pang sounds kept coming out. Suddenly, the sky within a radius of 10 miles was filled with surging demon chi, and strong winds blew in all directions. Ji Tianxing resisted more than 30 black lights of death, but he was still hit by 4 black light blades. The white robe he wore was cut into pieces, and there were several deep bloody wounds on his chest and back. Dark red blood seeped out. Not only that, but he was also sent flying and fiercely smashed into the huge city gate with a muffled ping sound. The 100-meter-high city gate trembled, and the city wall also shook violently, making the guards on the city wall panic and fear. Ji Tianxing fell under the city gate and leaned against it, covered in blood. He covered his chest with his left hand and panted violently. His hair was disheveled, his clothes were ragged, and his face was covered in blood. After a few violent coughs, blood gushed out of his mouth and nose. Demon General Ming Yi stood in the sky, wrapped in black fog. He looked at him coldly and shouted, "Ji Tianxing, it's all over." When his voice fell, he waved his palms again and shot out 2 black lights of death toward Ji Tianxing. He had already made up his mind to destroy Ji Tianxing's body on the spot. Then, he would capture Ji Tianxing's soul and bring it back to the northern desert to report to the Demon Emperor. At the critical moment, Ji Tianxing had no choice but to use the soul-reaping bell to protect himself. The black lights of death hit the soul-reaping bell fiercely, and then hit the city gate with a boom. Suddenly, the defensive formation on the city gate was activated, and a huge yellow light barrier lit up. The light barrier trembled violently under the attack of the black lights of death, and the city gate also shook violently. The soul-reaping bell was also sent flying. With a boom, it smashed into the cliff wall not far away, creating a huge hole and countless cracks. Demon General Ming Yi was about to continue attacking, but at this time, the guards on the city wall suddenly burst into a burst of excited cheers. "Lord Divine General is here." "Great. Lord Divine General's arrival will definitely stop the invasion of the demon race." Accompanied by the cheers of the guards, a dazzling white light flew out from the city and landed on the city wall with a swish. When the white light faded, a tall and sturdy figure appeared in front of everyone. This person was a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s. He wore a golden armor, a dark golden helmet, and a silver cloak embroidered with stars and clouds. His body was tall and straight, and he had a square face that was resolute and dignified. A pair of thick eyebrows and big eyes revealed an aura of iron and blood. Chapter 1087. The Divine General of the West Wilderness stood on the city wall, looking down at the situation with a dignified expression. He saw Demon Commander Dark Knight, who was shrouded in demonic fog and had a cold and powerful aura. He also saw Ji Tianxing, who was covered in blood and in a sorry state. However, he was expressionless and did not speak. He only stared at Ji Tianxing and frowned slightly. A strange look flashed in his eyes. Demon Commander Dark Knight temporarily stopped attacking and stood in the air, staring coldly at the Divine General of the West Wilderness. He was very powerful and was not far from the primordial soul realm. He was strong enough to dominate the world and look down on all heroes. Even if the Divine General of the West Wilderness personally attacked, he would not be a match for him. However, he had to consider that there were 100,000 soldiers stationed in the city, countless elite soldiers and powerful defensive formations. Most importantly, there was a teleportation formation in Mang City that was connected to the human imperial court. If the situation was critical, the imperial tutor and emperor of the human imperial court could come to Mang City through the teleportation formation. Demon Commander Dark Knight stood in the air coldly and indifferently, staring at the Divine General of the West Wilderness's expression. He wanted to know how the Divine General of the West Wilderness would react. At this moment, Ji Tianxing staggered out of the rubble and flew into the sky, covered in blood. He put away the soul-reaping bell and took a few breaths. Then, he looked up at the Divine General of the West Wilderness on the city wall and said solemnly, "Tianshan Region Lord Ji Tianxing greets the Divine General of the West Wilderness." As he spoke, he endured his injuries and bowed to you Tianhong. "Sir Divine General, this is Demon Commander Dark Knight under the Demon Emperor. He chased me all the way from the northern desert to here. I'm already seriously injured. Please open the city gate and help me." He explained the cause of the matter to Yu Tianhong and begged him to help him escape. However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by Yu Tianhong. Yu Tianhong looked at him expressionlessly. His eyes were cold as he said indifferently, "You call yourself the Tianshan region lord, but who knows you? Who can testify for you?" Demon General Dark Knight was very powerful and was very close to the primordial spirit realm. His whereabouts had always been mysterious, and no one had ever seen his true face. And you claim to be the heavenly stellar region lord, who was chased by demon martial Dark Knight and fled from the northern desert to here. You can even make up such a ridiculous lie? How could you escape from the northern desert to here with your insignificant strength? I am very suspicious that you are a spy from the demon race, pretending to be one of my people to deceive me into opening the city gates. You want to help the demons break into the city and break through the defense line at the border. You damned demon spy, get the hell away from me, or I'll definitely kill you. Yu Tianhong's voice was cold and imposing. His voice reverberated in front of the city gate, causing the ground to tremble. After hearing his words, the countless guards on the city walls suddenly understood and looked at him with admiration. Yu Tianhong was the spiritual leader of these guards. In everyone's eyes, he was a famous general with unparalleled bravery and wisdom. When Ji Tianxing heard his words, he was stunned on the spot, and his face became very ugly. He never thought that he would finally be able to escape safely after going through so much to escape to the border, and just as he was about to enter Mang City. The divine general of the West Wilderness, Yu Tianhong, who guarded Mang City, had such an attitude and reaction. Ji Tianxing was a little absent-minded. He looked at Yu Tianhong in disbelief and muttered in his heart, "No." Even the divine general of the East Forest, Xiao Han, who is far away in the East Sea, has heard of my name and deeds. As a divine general of the West Wilderness, Yu Tianhong must have heard of my name and know my identity. But I have no enmity with him, and we have never met before. Why did he treat me like this, pretending not to know me and not saving me? He immediately realized that there was something wrong with Yu Tianhong's reaction. Not only that, when he was in a daze, Yu Tianhong was looking at him with cold eyes. His mouth curved into a mocking sneer, and his eyes flashed with contempt. Ji Tianxing saw the change in his expression and was even more sure that he did it on purpose. Damn it! Yu Tianhong and Xiao Han are both divine generals. One is fair, strict, wise, and righteous, while the other is sinister and despicable, not saving me. Looking at Yu Tianhong's reaction, he seems to hate me and can't wait for me to be killed immediately. But when did I offend him? At this time, Demon General Dark Knight sneered. Ha! Ji Tianxing, you didn't expect this, did you? Even the divine general of the human race who guards the border is not willing to save you. Ben Shuai was also very surprised. Aren't you the #1 genius of the human race? Aren't you a genius? How come you are abandoned by the human race when you are about to die? How ironic. The heavens have decided that you are going to die here today. Demon General Dark Knight's voice was very harsh, making Ji Tianxing extremely angry. His eyes were filled with dense killing intent. He glared at Demon General Dark Knight indifferently, then turned to the divine general of the West Wilderness on the city wall and shouted coldly, "Yu Tianhong, I will remember today's matter. One day, I will make you regret what you did today. At that time, even if you kneel down and beg me, it will be useless." Ji Tianxing's voice was as cold as ice, filled with deep hatred. He suspected that Yu Tianhong was instructed by someone or colluded with the demon race, which was why he did not save him. However, he hid these words in his heart and would not say it out loud. After all, this was only his guess. Even if he said it out loud, Yu Tianhong would not admit it. Yu Tianhong looked at him with a mocking gaze and sneered contemptuously, "You demon spy, are you angry because this general saw through your scheme? You dare to threaten this general with just a bastard like you? You'd better think about how to escape first. However, I expect that you will not be able to escape death today, and there will be no future." Ji Tianxing looked at him deeply and did not waste any more words with him. He turned and flew into the distance, desperately escaping. Demon General Dark Knight also laughed sinisterly, his eyes flashing with dense killing intent. He turned into a black shadow and chased after him. The two left the city gate one after the other and flew towards the mountain range in the distance. Yu Tianhong stood on the city wall and looked at Ji Tianxing's figure in the distance. The corners of his mouth hooked up into a sneer of gloating. Arrogant and ignorant little bastard, this general was worried that he could not find a chance to eliminate you. I didn't expect you to court death and provoke Demon General Dark Knight. It's really heaven's will to make fun of you. You actually fell into this general's hands. This way it will save you a lot of trouble. You are being chased by Demon General Dark Knight. This time, you will die without a doubt. After that, he turned and left the city wall, flying back into the city. A Sky Origin Stage Deputy General followed him. While flying back to the city, he asked, Lord Divine General, I don't think that person is lying. He is really Ji Tianxing. Moreover, he just took out the Domain Lord's golden seal. Lord Divine General, if we don't save him, if this matter is known by the Imperial Court and the Monarch Mansion, I'm afraid it will be difficult to explain. Yu Tianhong sneered disdainfully. This general guards the border of the Western Wilderness and protects millions of people of my race. How can I open the city gate for him alone? If Demon General Dark Knight kills his way into the city, who can stop him? If the demon army breaks through Mang City and enters the central region, who will be responsible? This high-sounding reason immediately made the deputy general speechless. He fell silent and no longer spoke. Yu Tianhong warned again in a solemn tone, Ji Tianxing is being chased by Demon General Dark Knight. Today, he will die without a doubt. In the future, if the news spreads and the Imperial Court and the Monarch Mansion ask about this matter, you will have to answer like this. Even if the Emperor asks in person, this general will have to explain like this. This general thinks that no matter how much the Emperor values Ji Tianxing, it is impossible for him to ignore right and wrong and vent his anger on this general. Chapter 1088. Ji Tianxing endured his injuries, ignoring his tattered clothes and the bloodstains all over his body. He entered the majestic and boundless Manggu mountain range. Stepping on the soul magic sword, he flew as if his life depended on it. The soul magic sword flickered with a dazzling golden light, enveloping him as it shuttled through the mountains as fast as lightning. Demon General Dark Knight followed closely behind. He turned into a black light of death and flew across the sky, relentlessly chasing after him. With the passage of time, the distance between the two sides was constantly shortened, from 20 miles to about 10 miles. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. The two had already flown for 6,000 miles, far away from Manggu City. Ji Tianxing's strength had been exhausted, and his soul magic sword was extremely weak. The soul magic sword under his feet had also become dim. His flying speed became slower and slower. His vision gradually blurred, and his consciousness became more and more muddled. However, he clenched his teeth and held on. With his tenacious willpower and perseverance, he continued to fly for his life. No, I can't stop and I can't faint. I've experienced so many dangers, and I've survived countless times. I've clenched my teeth and endured them all. I went deep into the northern desert, infiltrated the demon emperor's lair, and spent so much effort to save Yao Yao. I've already returned to the central continent. How can I fall here? These thoughts constantly flashed through his mind. His heart was filled with anger and unwillingness. However, his injuries were too severe. His magic power had been exhausted, and his soul magic was almost exhausted. He was already on the verge of fainting. He was truly in a desperate situation. No matter how much he tried to hold on, he couldn't hold on anymore. Demon General Dark Knight accelerated and chased after him. He was only 1,000 meters away from him. At the critical moment, the heaven-mending orb in his mind suddenly surged with a mysterious white light and poured into his soul. Suddenly, he was like a person who was about to die of thirst and suddenly drank cool spring water. The power of his spiritual energy was stimulated once more, causing the spiritual energy magic sword to regain its dazzling golden radiance. Its speed also increased abruptly. He rode the soul magic sword and ran as fast as lightning for another 2 hours, flying for more than 10,000 miles. However, the heaven-mending orb no longer released the mysterious white light. His soul magic sword was also completely exhausted. He closed his eyes in a daze. The moment before he fainted, he suddenly realized something. He thought to himself, so that's how it is. The mysterious white light released by the heaven-mending orb stimulated the hidden power in my soul. It can't help me recover my strength quickly, but it can stimulate my potential and overdraw my strength. But now, my potential has been exhausted, yet I still can't break free from demon martial dark night. Only death awaits me. Am I really going to die in the Manga Mountains? After this thought flashed through his mind, he closed his eyes. Filled with despair and unwillingness, he completely fell into a coma. The dim soul magic sword flew back into his body with a whoosh and returned to his mind. He fell from the sky, drawing an arc in the air as he smashed into the mountains below. The terrain of this mountain range was precipitous and towering, and it still maintained its original appearance. Obviously, no one had set foot here. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth was very abundant. The mountains were covered by dark green forests, and in the deep valleys, there were countless exotic flowers and herbs. Perhaps, this was where Ji Tianxing was buried. To be able to die in such a peaceful and natural place far away from the world with a spiritual vein was perhaps the last gift from the heavens to him. When Ji Tianxing fell from the sky, the broken sword suddenly appeared and released a mysterious black light. It wrapped around his whole body and carried him forward. 1,000 meters behind, Demon Martial Dark Knight saw this scene and his eyes immediately revealed a sinister smile. You finally fainted. You damned reptile, it's already a miracle that you can escape here. Now you're dead for sure. As he sneered, he waved his palms and released a turbulent black light of death. It condensed into 200-meter-long black light blades and fiercely blasted towards Ji Tianxing. The power of the burial of heaven was also very weak. The speed of the broken sword's flight was relatively slow, and it couldn't dodge the two black light blades at all. Bang bang! The black light blades slashed the broken sword, and two deafening muffled sounds burst out. Immediately, the broken sword was blasted away and fell into the valley below. Its light was extremely dim, like an abandoned broken sword. Ji Tianxing of the broken sword sect blocked the two black light blades, but he was almost out of energy. The unconscious Ji Tianxing fell from the sky and smashed into the valley full of flowers and plants with a bang. The loud sound reverberated fiercely in the mountains and only dissipated after a long time. The broken sword was inserted into a large black rock in the valley, and it was still trembling and buzzing. Ji Tianxing smashed the moist and fertile ground of the valley, creating a huge pit with a radius of 30 meters. Mud, flowers, and wood splashed all over the sky. He lay unconscious at the bottom of the pit, half of his body buried by the dark brown mud. He lay there motionlessly. It was all over. Ji Tianxing and the broken sword had lost the power to resist. What awaited them was only to be captured and brought back to the Demon King in the northern desert. Swoosh! Demon Martial Dark Knight descended from the sky and landed in the valley full of flowers and plants. He stood at the edge of the huge pit and looked down at Ji Tianxing in the deep pit. A cold smile flashed through his scarlet eyes. It's finally over. Ben Shuai chased you all the way here from the northern desert in vain. I finally caught you. You're only at the first layer of the soul refining realm, but you were able to create such a big storm and escape from Ben Shuai for 1,000,000 miles. It's really incredible. No wonder His Majesty the Demon King views you as a great enemy and swears to kill you and take your bloodline. Now your life, Kenshin bloodline, the soul of the divine sword, and the Saintess have all fallen into Ben Shuai's hands. His Majesty the Demon King's long-cherished wish has finally been fulfilled. Demon Martial Dark Knight muttered a few words to himself. Only then did he reach out his palms in satisfaction, grabbing at Ji Tianxing and the broken sword not far away. However, at this moment, a great change occurred in the depths of the valley. Swoosh! In the depths of the valley full of flowers and plants, a dazzling green light suddenly lit up. The rich dark green brilliance quickly expanded and turned into a huge curtain of light that covered half of the valley. Demon Martial Dark Knight's body suddenly froze. He frowned and looked into the depths of the valley, his eyes coldly sizing up the dark green curtain of light. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared in the mysterious dark green curtain of light. It opened to both sides and formed a large door. Swoosh! A green figure passed through the door of light and stepped into the valley. Demon Martial Dark Knight could clearly see that behind the door of light was a vast world with mountains and rivers. He immediately understood that the green curtain of light was a boundary, and the door of light was connected to another alternate space. As for the green figure, it was a human old man with a head full of white hair. He wore a long green robe and black cloth shoes. Chapter 1089. The old man seemed to have reached the age of 80, appearing senile and doddering. However, his body was still tall and straight, his spirit hale and hearty. His skin and complexion were as translucent as jade, as if he had regained his youth. His chiseled face was full of vicissitudes of life. His clear and bright eyes contained the wisdom of seeing through the mysteries of heaven and earth. Although he was already old, it could still be seen that he must have been a handsome martial genius when he was young. He walked with steady steps on the soft grass. His azure robe was spotless, and there was a sackcloth belt around his waist. His long gray hair, with 2 azure jade hairpins at his temples, draped behind his head and reached his waist. His gaze was as calm as water as he looked at Demon Commander Dark Knight. Frowning slightly, he muttered to himself, "Evil spawn of the demon race?" His tone was cold and indifferent, faintly containing a trace of killing intent. Demon Commander Dark Knight stared at him and sized him up. Sensing his strength and aura, his pupils immediately shrank. After hesitating for a moment, he said coldly, "Old man, this matter has nothing to do with you. Please step aside." Evidently, he was also afraid of the strength of the azure-robed old man. He did not want to cause more problems and did not want to have a conflict with him. However, the azure-robed old man raised his eyebrows, and the corner of his mouth hooked in a cold smile. "Ah, this is the Central Continent. How can a demon like you dare to step into my race's territory have nothing to do with this old man? Moreover, why would this old man need a reason to kill a demon?" As he spoke, he slowly raised his palms, and a dark green splendor surged from his body. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The surging dark green splendor immediately flew in all directions, landing around the valley. In the blink of an eye, the dark green splendor condensed into a barrier of light with a radius of 30 li, enveloping the entire valley. This area was immediately sealed off, under the control of the azure-robed old man. On the grassland in the valley, the endless grass and flowers immediately retreated like the tide, disappearing completely in the blink of an eye. Demon Commander Dark Knight secretly clenched his fists. Vast and surging demonic power accumulated in his body, and his entire body lit up with the cold, pitch-black light of death. "Old man, do you really want to become enemies with Ben Shui?" His tone was cold and low, full of warning. The old man in a green robe didn't seem to hear his words. He dusted his sleeves, and a dark green wooden stick as thick as a child's arm appeared in his palm. The wooden stick was green in color, and there were a few branches growing out of it. It looked like a branch that had been snapped off from a certain tree. However, this seemingly ordinary dark green wooden stick was definitely not ordinary. In fact, it was not even an ordinary object. He held the dark green wooden staff in his right hand and lightly patted his left palm. He said expressionlessly, "This old man hasn't used his boundless staff for many years. Today, I'll use you to practice." As his voice fell, his right hand shook, and he swung the boundless rod at Demon Martial Dark Knight. The two of them were clearly separated by 1,000 meters, but Demon General Dark Knight felt as if that green wooden stick was smashing down on his head. Just as he was about to circulate his energy to resist and launch a counterattack, 6 dark green sword lights appeared above his head out of thin air. Bang 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 bang. Demon General Dark Knight was caught off guard. He was struck by the 6 dark green sword lights on the spot, and there was a loud, dull sound. A deep pit with a radius of 10 li was blasted out of the dark brown fertile ground, and dust filled the air. The incomparably violent dark green sword lights blasted Demon General Dark Knight into the ground. He lay at the bottom of the pit, battered and exhausted. His protective black light and demonic chi had been completely shattered by the dark green sword lights. Even the 9 Underworld's armor he wore had 6 dents. Although the 9 Underworld's armor had not been cut, He had suffered internal injuries. Black demonic blood flowed out of his mouth and nose. He struggled to get up, and his eyes widened in disbelief. He stared at the boundless staff in the hands of the old man in a green robe and exclaimed, "What kind of magic treasure is this? It can actually hurt Benshuai's 9 underworlds armor? This is impossible, absolutely impossible." Demon General Dark Knight's greatest reliance was the 9 underworlds armor he wore. According to legend, this was a battle armor taken from the 9 underworlds. Although it was not a divine artifact, it was even more so. And the seemingly ordinary wooden staff in the hands of the old man in a green robe did not seem to be a magic treasure at all. It could actually leave dents on the 9 underworlds armor. How inconceivable was this? The old man in a green robe raised his eyebrows and said expressionlessly, "9 underworlds armor? You can actually block this old man's boundless staff? Not bad. It seems you have a very high position in the demon race." As he spoke, he rushed to Demon General Dark Knight's side in a flash. He swung the boundless staff again and smashed it at Demon General Dark Knight. His charging posture and the way he swung the staff looked like a mortal fighting, simple and crude. There were no moves to speak of at all, nor were there any fancy movements or shadows. But it was such a simple attack that made Demon General Dark Knight feel like he was facing a great enemy. His eyes were incomparably solemn. You've actually reached the half-step primordial spirit realm and are about to cross that threshold? While he was shocked, he immediately released endless black mist and demonic chi to hide himself. His figure flashed and teleported 1,000 meters away, escaping from the huge pit. However, the old man in a green robe also followed up like a ghost and smashed his staff on the top of his head. Bam! Amidst a deafening sound, Demon General Dark Knight was smashed and sent flying 10 kilometers away, crashing into the dark green light screen at the edge of the valley. The black helmet on his head was deeply dented, revealing a deep groove the width of a palm. The terrifying impact broke his neck and bones, causing him to feel dizzy and almost fainted. Demon General Dark Knight was even more terrified. He could not believe this result. He hurriedly got up from the ground and used a secret technique to reconnect his broken neck. Seeing the old man in a green robe chasing after him with the boundless staff, he did not dare to stay. He hurriedly flew into the sky, only wanting to escape. The old man in a green robe flashed and teleported another 5 kilometers away, catching up behind him. Try this old man's new sword technique, Soul Chasing Sword. Although he was talking about a sword technique, he held the boundless staff in his right hand and smashed it at Demon General Dark Knight's back. A vast green light gushed out of the boundless staff, condensing into a 100-meter-long green blade. It instantly tore through the sky and slashed at Demon General Dark Knight. Bam! Another dull sound burst out, and Demon General Dark Knight was sent flying again, rolling toward the entrance of the valley. A long and narrow dent was left on the black armor on his back, and his internal injuries were even more serious. However, the 9 underworlds armor had blocked most of the power for him, so this injury was nothing to him. He fell at the entrance of the valley with a plop and waved his palms without hesitation, releasing his lifetime's power and slashing out 2 beams of black light of death. The 2 beams of black light slashed at the old man in a green robe and the green light screen at the entrance. The old man in a green robe was not afraid at all. He waved the boundless staff and scattered green light all over the sky, blocking the attack of the black light blades. The black light blades immediately collapsed, bursting into fragments that filled the sky. However, he was also forced back a kilometer by the violent power before he could steady himself. After he stabilized himself, he saw that the dark green light screen had been torn open by the other beam of black light. Demon General Dark Knight turned into a beam of black light, passing through the gap with a whoosh. He escaped from the valley as fast as lightning, flying into the distance. Still want to escape? The old man in a green robe frowned and chased after him with murderous intent. However, at this moment, the voice of the burial of heaven came from the broken sword in the corner of the valley. It used its soul to whisper to the old man in a green robe, "Little ye, don't chase. Saving people is more important." Hearing this voice, the old man in a green robe suddenly stiffened and stopped. Chapter 1090. The green-robed elder was incomparably shocked and incredulous. His eyes were filled with astonishment and surprise. He couldn't even believe his ears, thinking that he had misheard. But that was a soul transmission, directly imprinted in his mind. There was no need to listen to it with his ears. His eyes swept across the ruined valley and looked into the depths of the valley, landing on a simple and dark broken sword. When he saw that pitch-black broken sword, his expression changed drastically. He was so excited that his heartbeat stopped. Swoosh! The next moment, the green-robed elder could no longer suppress his wild excitement. He teleported to a corner of the valley and held up the broken sword with both hands. Divine sword! It's really Master's divine sword. Just now, when I was in the boundless world, I sensed the divine sword's aura. It made my mind uneasy. I thought it was an illusion. I didn't expect it to be true. It's too unbelievable. After 1,000 years, I actually saw Master's divine sword again. The green-robed elder was so excited that his face was flushed. Even the goatee on his chin was trembling. He held the broken sword with both hands and knelt facing the east. He kowtowed 3 times with a respectful expression, paying his respects. After paying his respects, he stood up and held the broken sword with both hands. He gently caressed it and said with a trembling voice, "Burial of Heaven, is it really you?" Burial of Heaven's voice immediately came from the broken sword. It was as deep and vigorous as ever. "Of course it's me. Little Yi, I haven't seen you for 1,000 years. I didn't expect to meet you here. It's really fate that makes fools of people. Heaven's will is unpredictable." The green-robed elder nodded repeatedly and said in deep agreement, "Yes. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye." "Oh, right, burial of heaven, you said saving people was more important?" As he spoke, he turned his head and looked to his side. He saw a handsome young man covered in blood lying on the ground. That young man was Ji Tianxing, who had been unconscious all this time. When the green-robed elder and demon martial Dark Knight were fighting, Burial of Heaven carried him on the broken sword and hid in a corner of the valley. That was why he was not killed by the aftermath of the battle. The green-robed old man frowned as he sized up Ji Tianxing. His eyes were filled with doubt. This young man, why does he look a little familiar? As he spoke, he waved his hand and shot out a gentle green light. He parted the hair covering Ji Tianxing's face and removed the bloodstains on his face. When the green-robed elder saw his true face, his body suddenly trembled. His legs went soft and he was about to kneel down and salute. However, Buried Heaven sent a voice transmission to stop him in time. "Stop. He's not. You've got the wrong person." The green-robed elder's body suddenly stiffened. He stared at the unconscious Ji Tianxing and said doubtfully, "Sure enough, I was too excited and made a mistake." There was still a difference between the two of them. This young man was still too inexperienced and had yet to nurture the sword will of the heavens. However, aren't their figures and appearances too similar? Burial of Heaven said in a low tone, "This brat inherited his bloodline and inheritance. Of course they're very similar." "I see." The green-robed elder instantly came to a realization and revealed an expression full of envy. Burial of Heaven continued, "Little Yezi, don't just stand there. Quickly think of a way to save him. His injuries are too severe. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid there will be future troubles." Hearing Burial of Heaven's instructions, the green-robed elder nodded without hesitation. But he reached out his hands and carried the unconscious Ji Tianxing by the waist. He turned around and stepped into the spirit formation door. Burial of Heaven rode on the broken sword and followed closely beside him. After the green-robed elder and the broken sword entered the boundless world, the dark green light screen that covered the sky immediately disappeared. The valley returned to its original appearance. Endless soil emerged, filling up the ravines and craters. All sorts of exotic flowers and herbs also surged out like a tide, covering the earth. The valley became overflowing with spiritual energy once again, as if nothing had happened. The green-robed elder's place of seclusion was called the Boundless World. This was an independent alternate space. The area inside was very vast, a full 10,000 miles in circumference. In the Boundless World, there were no 4 seasons. It was always spring with gentle breezes and warm sunlight. The sky was azure as if it had been washed. Many 5-colored spiritual clouds floated. On the earth, there were undulating dark green mountain ranges, flat grasslands that stretched as far as the eye could see, and huge mirror-like lakes, as well as many winding and rushing rivers. In this space, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was incomparably dense. It condensed into 5-colored spiritual clouds and would frequently sprinkle down heavy rain of spiritual liquid. On the mountains and the earth, there were rare and precious flowers, herbs, and trees everywhere. Those flowers, herbs, and trees were all priceless medicinal materials that could be refined into all sorts of spiritual pills and miraculous medicines. The green-robed elder carried Ji Tianxing and stepped across the sky 1,000 meters with each step, crossing a vast and boundless grassland and flying towards the distant mountains. That mountain range with tall mountains and forests was a top-notch spiritual vein treasure land. Among them, the tallest mountain peak was a full 10,000 meters tall. It was truly indomitable. Above the mountain peak was a vast white sea of clouds. The green-robed elder's residence was on the mountain peak, wrapped in the sea of clouds. On the empty space on the mountain peak with a radius of 30 miles, there were dozens of nurseries of rare spiritual herbs that were turned into a medicinal garden. In the depths of the medicinal garden, there was a dark golden palace called the Boundless Palace. This ancient palace was built entirely from precious requiem wood and spirit-nourishing tree. Its appearance was simple and grand. Although it was not luxurious, it contained the aura of a hermit who was indifferent to fame and fortune. It even had incomparably powerful healing effects. Staying in the Boundless Palace could calm the soul and nourish the spirit. It could silently nurture the divine soul, strengthen one's strength, and increase one's strength. This was definitely an excellent residence that countless experts yearned for even in their dreams. The green-robed elder carried Ji Tianxing into the Boundless Palace and settled him in a secret room with a gentle green light, placing him on a requiem wood bed. Swish, swish, swish. The green-robed elder formed hand seals with both hands and shot out rays of green light that poured into Ji Tianxing's body, helping him clear the bloodstains on his body and checking the condition of his injuries. He was halfway through casting the spell when he suddenly discovered something and immediately revealed a look of surprise. This kid, not only did he inherit Master's bloodline, he also has the Azurewood spirit body. He only has the strength of the first level of the soul refinement realm, but he can actually exchange blows with that demon expert? That guy has the strength of the 8th level of the soul refinement realm. This is too inconceivable. Broken Sword floated beside him, silently observing Ji Tianxing's situation. Hearing the green-robed elder's words, Burial of Heaven said in a calm tone, "His uniqueness is not limited to this. Otherwise, how could he have inherited Kenshin's inheritance? However, help him heal first. You must wake him up as soon as possible. As for his matters, I will slowly explain them to you in the future." The green-robed elder nodded and did not say anything more. He continued to cast the spell to heal Ji Tianxing's injuries. He manipulated the power of the azure wood between heaven and earth and gave Ji Tianxing several soul-level medicinal pills that he refined. After a short half a day, Ji Tianxing's internal and external injuries were all treated by him, and his condition stabilized. Chapter 1091. After taking care of Ji Tianxing's injuries, the green-robed elder left the secret chamber. He returned to the hall of the palace and poured a cup of spiritual tea from the jade pot. The broken sword flew to his side and landed on the table, lying quietly. The green-robed elder drank his tea and rested while chatting with Burial of Heaven. Burial of Heaven, I never thought that we would meet again after 1,000 years. When you and Master left, I was only at the Origin Core realm and had not even mastered the 3 sword moves that Master taught me. The green-robed elder's tone was full of emotions as he talked about the past. Burial of Heaven said in a low voice, "Yes. At that time, you were as young as Tianxing. You were still a piece of unpolished jade. The green-robed elder frowned and asked doubtfully, Burial of Heaven, where did you go after you and Master left? Why is there a legend of Master's death circulating around the continent 100 years later? What did you go through? Why did you become like this, and why did Master disappear without a trace? Burial of Heaven remained silent. Perhaps he could not remember what happened back then, or perhaps he did not want to reveal it. The green-robed elder was full of doubts but did not pursue the matter. At this moment, Burial of Heaven asked him again, looking at you now, you seem to be cultivating your body and mind, comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth, and trying to break through to the primordial spirit realm? The green-robed elder nodded slightly and revealed a look of reminiscence. He said in a weary voice, Yes, I reached the spirit refinement realm 800 years ago. 300 years ago, I finally reached the 9th level of the spirit refinement realm. By chance, I entered an ancient realm of the starry sky and obtained a broken branch of the ancient boundless tree. As he spoke, he opened his left hand and a green light surged in his palm. The dark green boundless rod appeared. He gently stroked the boundless rod and smiled. Originally, with my slow aptitude, I might not be able to reach the primordial spirit realm in this lifetime. However, with the help of this boundless tree branch, I have already touched the threshold of the primordial spirit realm and may break through in the next 10 years. Boundless branch? Burial of Heaven was stunned for a moment and asked in a complicated tone, could it be the legendary boundless tree that grew in the sea of bitterness and was born from the spiritual energy of the other side of the starry sky? The green-robed elder nodded as a gratified smile appeared in his eyes. Ever since I reached the 5th level of the spirit refinement realm, for nearly 500 years, I have been traveling around the Tianxian land in search of famous mountains, great lakes, and ancient ruins. I've been trying my best to find the whereabouts of you and Master. I've been trying to gather information about you, trying to figure out the mystery of your disappearance and death. Unfortunately, after spending a few hundred years and traveling across the entire Tianxian land, I still could not find the answer. Burial of Heaven was silent for a while, then said in a low voice, Don't worry, one day, you will know the truth. However, if you want to fulfill your wish, you must do your best to help Ji Tianxing. He is our hope. Hearing this, the green-robed old man immediately raised his eyebrows and revealed a face full of surprise. So, this child is the successor that Master has chosen? That's right. Burial of Heaven said in a solemn tone. He has inherited Kenshin's bloodline and cultivated Kenshin's supreme sword art. He reached the spirit refinement realm at the age of 20, and his name is known throughout the world. If you have been outside in the past 2 years, you should have heard of his name and deeds. He is the #1 genius of the human race, the most monstrous genius of the Emperor's son, and also the youngest human domain lord. You have also seen what happened before. He was chased by demon Marshal Dark Knight and fled all the way from the northern desert to here, before falling into a coma due to his heavy injuries. His talent and aptitude are countless times higher than yours. Only he can fulfill the wish that you have not been able to fulfill. The green-robed elder listened to his words seriously. Every time he heard a story, the shock on his face and in his eyes grew stronger. When he heard the last part, he was silent for a long time before he nodded with a heart full of emotion. He sighed and said, So that's how it is. 1,000 years ago, although I was known as a genius, I eventually became a transcendent expert. However, compared to Ji Tianxing, the difference is still too great. In all fairness, only a monstrous and peerless genius like him is qualified to inherit Master's legacy. Burial of Heaven said in a solemn tone, It's good that you understand. The green-robed elder stroked his white beard and pondered for a while. Suddenly, he thought of something and said with a smile, Since he is Master's successor, I will take this opportunity to give him an opportunity. 2 years ago, I took the essence of the sun and moon and 100 kinds of spiritual herbs to refine a spirit-concentrating pill. This pill is a high-grade soul-level medicinal pill. It can help him strengthen the power of his divine soul, condense a divine soul Dharma I, and reach the second layer of the soul-refining realm. It just so happens that his divine soul's power is overdrawn, so I will give him this spirit concentrating pill to help him heal his divine soul and increase his strength. Burial of Heaven responded and said in a calm tone, "In that case, you can go." Previously, in order to help him escape, I also consumed a large amount of vitality. I need to rest for a period of time. After saying that, Burial of Heaven flew out of the hall on the broken sword and entered the mountain under Boundless Palace. The broken sword was hidden in the 10,000-meter tall mountain. It constantly absorbed the power of the metal and stone in the mountain, as well as the rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth, quickly recovering its vitality. The green-robed elder entered the secret chamber and took out a pill that flickered with green light and was overflowing with spiritual energy. He gave it to Ji Tianxing to eat. After that, he personally circulated his energy to help Ji Tianxing catalyze the medicinal power and nourish his divine soul. Time passed quickly. Day after day passed. In the boundless world, there were only the green-robed elder and Ji Tianxing, 2 living people, and Burial of Heaven's sword soul. For the next 10 days, the boundless world was as calm as water without any waves. Burial of Heaven had been absorbing energy from the mountain to recover his vitality. Ji Tianxing was still unconscious. He lay on the wooden bed in the secret chamber, quietly recuperating. Every afternoon, the green-robed elder had to give him a type of soul-level medicinal pill to help him catalyze the medicinal power and heal his injuries. 10 days passed. Ji Tianxing's internal and external injuries were all gradually healed. Not even a trace of a scar was left. Even his divine soul injuries were also healed. Furthermore, his divine soul strength was still constantly strengthening, becoming more and more tyrannical. His strength recovered to its peak state. His consciousness was already awakened. Although he did not know what exactly happened, he knew an expert. However, he knew that an expert had saved him and fed him a precious soul-level pill to help him break through to the second level of the soul refinement realm. He naturally had to continue circulating his energy and cultivate. Borrowing the terrifying medicinal power of the divine concentrating pill, he frenziedly strengthened his divine soul strength and condensed the second divine soul magic sword. Very soon, another 10 days passed. He finally condensed the second divine soul magic sword. His strength also naturally reached the second level of the soul refinement realm. When he successfully advanced, his entire body blossomed with a dazzling white light, releasing a powerful and vast aura of a powerhouse. After a long time, the white light of his divine soul receded and the powerful aura dissipated. He opened his eyes and saw a green-robed old man standing in the secret room. The old man was looking at him with a face full of smiles. When he saw the green-robed old man, he immediately guessed that this was his savior. Therefore, he hurriedly got off the bed and bowed to the green-robed old man. His tone was sincere as he said, "Junior Ji Tianxing is extremely grateful to Senior for saving my life and giving me the medicine." The green-robed old man nodded slightly and raised his hand, indicating that he could dispense with the formalities. Then he said with a face full of smiles, "Tianxing, congratulations on recovering from your injuries. Your cultivation has improved again." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing was stunned. He asked in confusion, "Senior, you? How do you know me?" The green-robed old man revealed a playful smile. "Of course, it was the Burial of Heaven who told me." "The Burial of Heaven, it told you?" Ji Tianxing was stunned again. His expression became more and more confused. "Senior, may I know your name?" Chapter 1092. Your Renhuangyi? Ji Tianxing was stunned. He looked at the green-robed elder in disbelief. His eyes were filled with excitement. He had heard of Renhuangye's name and legendary deeds when he was in the ancient star realm. The 1,000-year-old tomb under Dragon Mountain was the cenotaph that Renhuangyi had built for Kenshin. 1,000 years ago, Renhuangyi was the top genius of the Tianqian domain. However, in the past few hundred years, Renhuangyi had disappeared without a trace. There was no more news about him. Ji Tianxing had always thought that Renhuangyi had died or left the Tianqian continent. He had never imagined that he would see this legendary figure from 1,000 years ago in the vast Mangu mountain range with his own eyes. For a moment he couldn't believe that this was true. He looked Ren Huangyi up and down several times before he gradually came back to his senses. Then he suddenly remembered something else. Before he left the imperial residence, he had paid a visit to the imperial residence lord. The imperial residence lord had told him that if he wanted to deal with the demons, he would need the help of Kenshin's 4 followers. The imperial residence lord had only revealed the 4 words, ancient leaf Xiaoshui, about the 4 followers. In the past 6 months, he had pondered the meaning of these 4 words many times. In the end, he came to a conclusion. These 4 words represented the 4 followers. It was very likely that they were one of the words in their names or titles. There was another possibility. These 4 words represented the surnames of the 4 followers. Now that he had seen Ren Huangyi, he was even more certain of his guess. Ren Huangyi was the Yi in ancient leaf Xiaoshui. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing had a plan in mind. He followed Ren Huangyi out of the secret chamber and went to sit in the main hall. They chatted while drinking tea. Senior Ren Huangyi, you were also a genius powerhouse whose name shook the world. Why did you disappear without a trace for hundreds of years? Ren Huangyi stroked his beard and said indifferently, when I was young and full of vigor, I diligently practiced martial arts in order to make a name for myself and shake the world. But after 100 years, they became accustomed to the vicissitudes of the world and lost their drive. They only want to climb to the peak of martial arts, fight against the heavens, and explore a wider world. Ji Tianxing vaguely understood his feelings. He nodded and said, So, you don't care about the affairs of the world and live in seclusion in this paradise for hundreds of years? Emperor Yi nodded slightly and said, That's right. This place was located in the depths of the Mangu mountain range. For hundreds of years, very few people had set foot here, so no one would disturb this old man's peace. Moreover, this boundless world is a paradise left behind from the ancient times. It's the most suitable place to cultivate the body and mind, nurture the soul, and comprehend the grand Tao of heaven and earth. Ji Tianxing could tell that Emperor Yi had lived in seclusion in the boundless world for several hundred years. His state of mind had long been as calm as water. Fame, wealth, women, love, and enmity in the mortal world were probably unable to arouse his interest anymore. His only wish now was to comprehend the great Tao of heaven and earth and break through the shackles of the essence soul realm. After being silent for a moment, Ji Tianxing said in a solemn tone, Senior Emperor Yi, although I know that you've already stopped caring about the affairs of the world for several hundred years and only wanted to live in seclusion here and cultivate the martial way. But the situation in the present profound sky continent is becoming more and more tense and critical. 1,000 years ago, Kenshin suppressed the ancient fiend emperor in the Tianshan region. But just 2 years ago, the fiend emperor broke through the seal and reappeared in the world. After the fiend emperor returned to the northern desert, the fiend race changed their previous decadent and dispirited aura and became ambitious once more, madly invading the human race, the demon race, and the water race. Moreover, the curse that had always existed in the fiend race's bloodline was also resolved and removed. The present fiend race, without the shackles of the bloodline curse, developed and strengthened even more rapidly. Their forces were currently skyrocketing wildly. Not long after, the fiend race will surely sweep across the world, bringing bloody slaughter and disaster to the various races of the continent. Ji Tianxing told Emperor Yi the situation in the profound sky continent and the fiend race in full detail. After Emperor Yi finished listening, only then did he know that the situation in the outside world had actually undergone so many changes. However, he had not paid attention to worldly affairs for hundreds of years, and his heart had long been as still as water. Even when he heard this news, he only sighed with emotion and did not have much of a reaction. Ji Tianxing looked at Emperor Yi with a solemn expression and said in a solemn tone, Senior Emperor Yi, you also know that I have a blood feud with the fiend race that is absolutely irreconcilable. Moreover, I have inherited the Kenshin bloodline and legacy, and vowed to exterminate the fiend race, protect my family, friends, and the people of the human race, and return the profound sky continent to a bright and clear universe. But with my own strength, it is simply impossible to accomplish this great task, so I would like to ask you to come out of retirement and lend me a hand." Finished speaking, Ji Tianxing stood up and bowed deeply to Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi also hurriedly got up and stretched out both hands to help him up. He shook his head repeatedly and said, "Tianxing, this cannot be done. Quickly get up, this old man cannot accept such a great bow from you." Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, "Senior Emperor Yi, do you not agree?" Emperor Yi revealed a difficult expression and sighed. He said earnestly, "Tianxing, do you know why this old man has been living in seclusion here and has not appeared in the world for hundreds of years?" Ji Tianxing asked. Emperor Yi stroked his beard and looked at the sea of clouds outside the main hall. He said slowly, "Other than going into seclusion to comprehend the great Tao, this old man is also waiting for someone." "Waiting for someone?" Ji Tianxing frowned and asked doubtfully, "May I ask who you are waiting for?" "An old friend. Let's not talk about this matter." Emperor Yi waved his hand and sighed deeply. "As for your request, please forgive this old man for not being able to agree to it for the time being, and for not being able to come out of retirement to help you. For thousands of years, all the major races, kingdoms, and forces on the continent have risen and fallen. Things will move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. This is the principle of heaven and earth, the Tao of yin and yang. All prosperity and decline are determined by the will of heaven. This old man is just a speck of sand in the world, mediocre and ordinary. I am not like you, a dragon among men who can stir up the world and change the situation of the continent. Even if this old man were to come out of retirement to help you now, it would be useless. I would not be able to change anything, and I would not be able to affect the situation of the world." Hearing Emperor Ye's words, the light of hope in Ji Tianxing's eyes immediately dimmed. He thought to himself, "It seems that Emperor Ye's mentality has indeed aged after living in seclusion for hundreds of years. He seems to have seen through the mundane world. Now, he only wants to live in seclusion in the boundless world and break through the shackles of the primordial soul realm. He wants to guard this paradise and wait for his old friend to return." At this moment, Emperor Yi saw his gloomy expression and said to him, "However, Tianxing, don't worry. When your strength is strong enough and you truly need help, this old man will naturally come out of retirement and lend you a helping hand. This old man believes that day will not be too far away." Ji Tianxing was slightly relieved. He bowed to Emperor Yi and cupped his hands. "If that is the case, then I will first thank Senior Emperor Yi." Chapter 1093. Emperor Ye's reaction and attitude were within Ji Tianxing's expectations. When he was in the Eastern Sea's returning ruins, he had entered the Eastern Mountain residence and explored the Eastern Mountain Exalt's cave abode. From the heaven-viewing record of the world, he could see the Eastern Mountain Exalt's way of life and attitude. The Eastern Mountain Exalt was a peak primordial soul Exalt powerhouse. He had the qualifications and strength to stir up the world and change the situation of the continent. However, the Eastern Mountain Exalt did not do so. Instead, he chose to isolate himself from the world, observing the heavens and reading the world, comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth, only seeking to climb to the peak of the martial Tao. Now, Emperor Yi had a similar attitude. However, he was more humane than the Eastern Mountain Exalt. He was not as aloof and cold as the Eastern Mountain Exalt. When Ji Tianxing bade farewell to Emperor Yi, he was still thinking to himself, could it be that transcendents who have lived for hundreds and thousands of years are all above ordinary people, indifferent to fame and fortune, and unconcerned with the affairs of the world? One day, if I can also reach the primordial soul Exalt realm, will I also be like them, viewing ordinary people as ants, wholeheartedly seeking to reach the peak of the martial Tao? He asked himself and pondered for a while. The conclusion he came to was no. He could not do it because he had not yet severed his ties with the world, had not yet severed his 7 emotions and 6 desires. After bowing to Emperor Yi and taking his leave, Ji Tianxing turned and walked towards the door of the main hall. Emperor Yi hurriedly followed and sent him out of the main hall. As he walked, he said, Tianxing, now that your injuries have just healed, if there is nothing urgent, don't be in a hurry to return to the central continent. The boundless world is full of verdant trees and spiritual qi. It is very suitable for you to stay here and recuperate, consolidating your martial Dao. Ji Tianxing shook his head and declined Emperor Ye's invitation to stay. Senior Emperor Yi, I am very sorry. I have worldly matters to attend to and must return to the central continent as soon as possible. There are still many friends and family members who are worried about me. I have to return as soon as possible so that they can be at ease. Emperor Yi nodded and did not urge him to stay. The two of them stood at the door of the main hall. Emperor Yi looked at him with a deep gaze and said earnestly, Tianxing, I know that you have great ambitions and lofty aspirations. But you must set your sights further. Don't care about temporary gains and losses, honor and disgrace, and don't be too attached to the matter of exterminating the demon race. Your mission is not on this continent, nor is it related to the demon race. You still have a long way to go. You bear the burden of the burial of heaven and our hope. Ji Tianxing could roughly understand what he meant. Perhaps it had something to do with Kenshin's death. However, that was a matter for the future, and it was still very far away. For the time being, it was inconvenient for him to say anything. He could only nod and say, Thank you for your teachings, Senior. I understand. Emperor Yi nodded slightly. He stroked his beard and said, Since that's the case, I won't keep you any longer. That demon martial Dark Knight has already been injured by this old man and fled in panic. Now that you've returned to the central state, I believe you won't encounter any danger. Ji Tianxing nodded and cupped his hands in salute. Then he used his soul to call out to Burial of Heaven. Burial of Heaven, it's time for us to leave. Burial of Heaven had been recuperating on the mountain peak, absorbing energy to recover its vitality. After so many days of recuperation, it had already recovered 80% of its strength. The broken sword once again became encircled by a black light, and its sharpness was threatening. Hearing Ji Tianxing's call, the broken sword flew out of the mountain peak with a whoosh and arrived in front of the main hall. Ji Tianxing put away the broken sword. Accompanied by Emperor Yi, he flew over the boundless sea of clouds and flew toward the exit of the boundless world. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the exit. Emperor Yi opened the exit of the boundless world. Ji Tianxing bid farewell to him and left through the large door of green light. He returned to the Mangu mountain range, flew high into the sky, and returned to the central state as fast as lightning. For the next half a month, he had been flying and hurrying on his way. During this time, he didn't encounter any more dangers or setbacks. At noon on the 16th day, he finally returned to the central state city safely. The warm noon sun spilled over the eternal sacred city, causing the entire city to be covered in a layer of gold. It appeared resplendent and magnificent. After a year, Ji Tianxing returned to the central state city again. His heart was filled with emotions. A year ago, I left the central state city. First, I went to the great swamp of the southern wasteland. Then I went to the imperial court of the Eastern Sea. After passing through the ruins of the Eastern Sea, I entered the northern desert. After leaving the northern desert, I took a detour to the western wasteland and passed through the Mangu mountain range before returning to the central state city. In this year, I circled around the Tianxian continent and experienced countless dangers and battles. Fortunately, I turned misfortune into blessings along the way and finally returned safely with Yao Yao. Thinking of this, he looked at the flourishing city in front of him and was actually a little absent-minded. A moment later, he landed outside the towering city gate and stood on the wide bluestone road. He woke up Yun Yao and Ji Ku, who were cultivating in the world inside the sword, and said to the two of them, Yao Yao, Ku, we have returned to the central state. Ku, you have followed me out of the central state for a year. Your brother Kun Wu and your parents must be very worried. You should return to the Star Moon Manor first and let them know that you have returned safely. Ji Ku also understood this point and nodded in agreement. She waved goodbye to him and Yun Yao. Brother Tianxing, senior sister, I will return first. If there is anything, contact me again. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao waved goodbye to her and stood outside the city gate to send her off with their eyes. After Ji Ke left, Ji Tianxing turned to Yun Yao and said, "Yao Yao, your body and bloodline have been demonized more and more. Send a message to the Cloud Spirit Palace and tell them that you are safe so that father-in-law and mother-in-law won't be worried. Later, we will return to the Monarch Mansion and see the great Divine Master. We will ask him to help you deal with the demonization." Yun Yao nodded and said, "Okay, I will send a message to the Cloud Spirit Palace now." Then, she took out a communication jade slip from her spatial ring and sent a message to Yun Zhongqi. After sending the message, she hesitated for a moment and said with a frown, "Tianxing, it is not convenient for me to meet people in my current state." Indeed, her skin was faintly black and her eyes were blood red. Her hair was silver and her nails were sharp. She really looked like a demoness. Ji Tianxing nodded and opened the entrance to the Sword World. He let her enter the Sword World and stay in the peaceful Earth City for the time being. Then, he went to the Forest of Divine Steels in the city alone and entered the Monarch Mansion. After returning to the Monarch Mansion, he flew across the sky at lightning speed towards the mountains within 1,000 miles. However, when he flew into the mountains, he saw dozens of princes sitting in the sky above a towering mountain. The towering mountain was 10,000 meters tall. It was the tallest mountain in the mountains and also the core of the heaven and earth formation. There was a 5-colored spiritual lake with a radius of 5 kilometers at the top of the mountain. Dozens of well-dressed princes were sitting in the air above the spiritual lake, and they seemed to be discussing something important. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing immediately recalled the scene when he first entered the Monarch Mansion. It was also like this. Back then, he used the invisibility talisman to sneak into the Monarch Mansion and happened to see God Master Blackfeather gathering all the princes to discuss something important above the Spirit Lake. Chapter 1094. Ji Tianxing could see the situation clearly even though he was still 100 miles away. More than 40 princes were sitting on a spiritual jade throne above the 5-colored spiritual lake at the peak of the mountain. Everyone was gathered in a group, like stars surrounding the moon, surrounding a dazzling golden lotus throne. A tall man in a black robe sat on the lotus throne. He was dressed simply in a black robe. His long hair was draped behind his head, and there were no decorations on his body. However, he had a dignified face, and he exuded the aura of an expert who looked down on the world. Without a doubt, this black-robed man was Divine Master Heiyu. Ji Tianxing could sense that Divine Master Heiyu's strength was not far from Emperor Ye's. They were both half a step into the primordial soul realm. However, Emperor Ye's strength and aura were more powerful than Divine Master Heiyu's. He would definitely break through to the primordial soul realm faster. Around Divine Master Heiyu sat the princes of the human, demon, and water tribes. Among them, Tai of the water tribe, Kunwu of the demon tribe, Fox Princess, and the Son of Heaven of the human tribe were all present. When Ji Tianxing rushed to the scene, he heard them discussing something. They were talking about the northern desert and the demon tribe. Before he could hear what they were discussing, Divine Master Heiyu sensed his aura. He stopped talking and looked up at him. When Divine Master Heiyu saw him, he raised his eyebrows. His eyes were filled with relief. Many of the princes noticed the change in Divine Master Heiyu's expression. They turned to look at Ji Tianxing. When they saw Ji Tianxing appear, they quieted down. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Obviously, no one expected Ji Tianxing to appear and return safely. Ji Tianxing stopped in front of Divine Master Heiyu. He bowed respectfully and said, "Prince Ji Tianxing greets the Divine Master." Divine Master Heiyu looked at him with a burning gaze. A rare smile appeared on his usually cold face. He nodded and said, "Good. Very good. You came back just in time." Ji Tianxing frowned doubtfully. Apparently, he didn't understand what he meant. At this moment, Kunwu revealed an excited expression and said with a smile, "Tianxing, I didn't expect you to return safe and sound. This is incredible." Long Yunxiao also revealed a smile and nodded. "Tianxing, it's great that you can return safely. The Grand Divine Master gathered all the princes in the mansion to discuss how to invade the northern desert and rescue you and Yun Yao. I didn't expect you to come back. It wasn't just Kuan Wu and Ji Tianxing. Fox Princess, Ling Yixiong, and the others also exclaimed in surprise. They felt disbelief and shock at Ji Tianxing's return. Ji Tianxing saw everyone's reaction and understood everything. He chuckled and said, "It seems that you all already know what happened." Divine Master Heiyu nodded slightly and explained calmly, "When you left Zhongzhou, we didn't know what happened. However, not long ago, Tai Yi returned from the East Sea and brought back the news. He said that you broke into the northern desert alone to rescue Yun Yao from the demonic king's lair. Everyone was worried about you and Yun Yao and was discussing how to rescue you. I didn't expect you to come back." After listening to Divine Master Heiyu's explanation, Ji Tianxing finally understood the reason. He turned to look at Tai Yi and gave him a grateful look. However, Tai Yi looked calm and didn't say anything. He only nodded slightly at him as a greeting. Divine Master Heiyu stared at Ji Tianxing and asked, "Tianxing, did you really break into the northern desert alone and sneak into the demonic king's lair?" Ji Tianxing nodded. The many princes immediately cried out in surprise, and they all revealed looks of disbelief. "Oh my God! Ji Tianxing is too bold. I heard from Tai Yi that Ji Tianxing went to the northern desert. I couldn't believe it. I didn't expect it to be true. This guy is really not afraid of death. He even dares to go to the demonic king's lair. That's right. Not only did he dare to go in, but he also came back alive. This is a miracle. Even a soul-tempering stage powerhouse wouldn't dare to go into the demonic king's lair, let alone us princes." Everyone stared at Ji Tianxing and sized him up carefully. Their eyes were filled with surprise and admiration. Fox Princess's beautiful eyes shone brightly as she looked at Ji Tianxing from head to toe. Suddenly, she sensed that Ji Tianxing's aura was a little strange. Her expression changed and she looked shocked. "Oh my God! Didn't you guys notice? Ji Tianxing's cultivation realm seems to have broken through to the ethereal stage." Hearing her words, all the princes were stunned. Everyone released their spiritual senses to check Ji Tianxing's strength. Then, their expressions changed drastically as they let out heartfelt exclamations and exclamations. "He really has broken through. He is at the soul-tempering stage. He has reached the soul-tempering stage." Ji Tianxing has only been in the palace for less than 3 years and he has already reached the soul-tempering stage? Comparisons are odious. No wonder this guy is the #1 genius of the human race. He is so powerful. Now, he is not only the #1 genius of the human race, but also the #1 genius of the imperial palace. He is the most powerful prince. The #1 prince, Ji Tianxing, deserves the title. More than 50 princes were whispering to each other. The atmosphere was very lively. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. They couldn't help but exclaim in admiration and envy. The place was noisy and the people were talking for a long time. After a while, Divine Master Heiyu waved his hand and asked everyone to quiet down. He looked at Ji Tianxing calmly and asked in a serious tone, "Tianxing, you broke into the northern desert alone and went deep into the demon king's lair. Did you save Yun Yao?" "Yes, I did." Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a worried look, "But her situation is not good. I was about to report to you and ask for your help." Divine Master Heiyu nodded and said, "It's good that you saved her. As for the other things, we will talk about it later. In the past 6 months, the demon race has been growing rapidly. They are gathering their army and attacking the demon race and the aquatic race's territories. The demon race has even attacked the border of Zhongzhou several times, trying to invade Zhongzhou. Today, I have gathered everyone for a meeting. I am going to persuade the 3 races to join forces and attack the northern desert demon race. Tianxing, you have been in the northern desert for a long time. You must know something about the demon race. Tell us what you found out so that everyone can be prepared." Ji Tianxing shook his head and said seriously, "Great Divine Master, we can't rush to attack the northern desert. We have to think about it in the long run. Since ancient times, the demon race had been cursed by the legendary goddess. Now that the curse has been removed, the demon race has lost its shackles. That is why they can grow rapidly. Chapter 1095. Regarding the bloodline curse, Divine Master Heyu knew something. However, many of the princes present had never heard of this legend, so they knew nothing about it. Hearing Ji Tianxing's words, everyone was surprised and confused. They then started to discuss among themselves. Divine Master Heyu frowned and said seriously, "If this news is true, then we're in big trouble." Ji Tianxing nodded and did not say anything else. Divine Master Heyu pondered for a moment before he made a decision. He said to the princes present, "Everyone, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao have returned safely. The rescue plan is cancelled. Also, the situation with the demon race has changed. The 3 races' joint attack on the northern desert will be put on hold for now. After I've made a decision, I'll inform everyone. Now, let's go back and cultivate." After the meeting was dismissed, Divine Master Heyu looked at Ji Tianxing and sent a voice transmission to him. "Tianxing, you've just returned to the imperial residence. Go and settle your own business. After you've settled your business, come to the Black Feather Palace to find me." Ji Tianxing nodded silently. Then, Divine Master Heyu turned into a stream of light and flew up to the sky, returning to the Black Feather Palace. The princes also stood up and sent him off. After Divine Master Heyu left, they dispersed. Tai Yi stood up calmly and looked at Ji Tianxing. He nodded and flew away with the other princes of the water race. Long Yunxiao, Kun Wu, Fox Princess, Ling Yichuan and the others were not in a hurry to leave. They all stayed. Everyone came to Ji Tianxing and asked him about the situation with concern. Kun Wu was the most anxious. He asked with concern, "Tianxing, where's Kuku? She left with you. There's no news about her until now. Is she back?" Ji Tianxing nodded and comforted him. "Kun Wu, don't worry. Kuku has been following me. She's back safely. When we were outside the city gate, I asked her to go back to the Star Moon Manor first. I don't want you, the Demon King and Demon Queen, to worry." Hearing this answer, Kun Wu finally felt at ease. Long Yunxiao looked at Ji Tianxing with shining eyes and asked worriedly, "Tianxing, how is Yao Yao? Just now, I heard you say that her situation doesn't seem good?" Ji Tianxing glanced at him and nodded. "That's true, but you don't have to worry too much. Her life isn't in danger. I'll tell you the details later." Long Yunxiao nodded slightly. He suppressed the doubts and worries in his heart and stopped asking. Fox Princess and Ling Yichong also gathered around and asked, "Tianxing, you have intruded into the northern desert alone. How can you walk around the northern desert? How did you sneak into the Demon Emperor's lair?" The northern desert is full of devil tribes and towns. Among them, there are countless experts and powerhouses. They are all very bloodthirsty and ferocious. Tianxing, you are really bold. Ji Tianxing chatted with them for a while. He briefly explained the matter of pretending to be a devil, which dispelled the doubts in their hearts. Then he bid farewell to everyone and turned to fly back to the Tianxing Palace. Long Yunxiao hesitated for a moment, then hurriedly followed him and rushed to the Tianxing Palace. After a quarter of an hour, the two returned to the Tianxing Palace and landed in front of the gate. The Tianxing Palace was still the same as before. It was shrouded in colorful spirit clouds, and the heaven and earth spiritual energy was very abundant. Over 100 guards and maids were guarding the main entrance of the Heavenly Palace, as well as the main roads, cleaning the palace until it was spotless. Seeing Ji Tianxing come back, the guards guarding the gate were full of joy and excitement. They hurriedly bowed and saluted. Ji Tianxing led Long Yunxiao through the gate and into the study room. They sat down and talked. Although the maids brought them spirit tea and spirit fruits, Long Yunxiao was worried about Long Yunxiao's safety. However, Long Yunxiao was worried about Yunyao's safety and did not have time to drink tea. After he sat down, he asked impatiently, "Tianxing, how is Yao Yao? What exactly happened?" Ji Tianxing explained to him, when the Devil Emperor captured Yao Yao, he brought her back to the Devil race's holy land in the northern desert. The Devil Emperor used an ancient Devil Dao secret art. Borrowing the power of the Samurai Soul Altar and the myriad Devil Blood Pool, He spent 49 days to transform Yao Yao into the ancient devil blood god. From then on, Yao Yao was completely demonized. Her consciousness retreated into the depths of her soul. Her body became that of a devil woman, and a new devil soul was born. She was conferred as the devil race's saintess by the devil emperor. She used a secret art to send down the holy spring to all the major devil tribes. Billions of devils were baptized by the holy spring, and the bloodline curse was dissolved and removed. They were all reborn, and their talents and aptitudes were greatly improved. Hearing this, Long Yunxiao couldn't help but exclaim in disbelief. How could this be? Yao Yao hated the devil race the most. The devil emperor was so despicable that he completely demonized her and turned her into the devil race's saintess? Ji Tianxing nodded and said in a low voice, "Yes, this is also the most painful knot in Yao Yao's heart. She hated the devil race the most, but in the end she became the devil race's saintess. She helped countless devils get rid of their curses and allowed the devil race to develop rapidly. After I rescued her, I helped her get rid of the devil's soul and awakened her soul. After she woke up, she blamed herself for this matter for a long time. She still hasn't resolved the knot in her heart." Long Yunxiao shook his head and said with a face full of indignation, "No. This isn't Yao Yao's fault. Why would she feel guilty? If she wants to blame someone, she can only blame the devil emperor for being too sinister and despicable." After a moment of silence, his anger subsided, and he continued to ask, "That's right, Yao Yao's soul has already awakened. What danger is she in?" Ji Tianxing frowned and said, "Although I've already gotten rid of the devil's soul and let her regain her original consciousness, her body is still that of a devil's, and she's still demonizing. Her appearance is becoming more and more like the devil race, and the blood flowing in her body is also the blood of the devil race. I'm helpless about this, so I can only ask Great Divine Master He Yu for help. I hope he has a solution." "So that's how it is." Long Yunxiao suddenly understood. With a complicated expression, he sighed and said, "Yao Yao hated the devil race the most, but now she's turned into the body of a devil race, and the devil race's blood is flowing in her body. She must feel disgusted and uncomfortable, and doesn't want to show herself, right?" "That's right." Ji Tianxing slightly nodded and said with a worried expression, "She came back with me, but she doesn't want everyone to see her current appearance. She used to be a proud daughter of heaven, the #1 beauty of Central State, a pure fairy, but now she's turned into a devil woman. How can she accept this?" Long Yunxiao understood the cause and effect of this matter, but another question arose in his heart. "Tianxing, there's something I don't understand. When the devil emperor kidnapped Yao Yao, it was obviously premeditated. Why did the devil emperor turn Yao Yao into the blood god's son and confer her as the devil race's saintess? With Yao Yao's strength, how could she use a secret technique to release the holy spring and remove the curse of the devil race's bloodline?" Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "This question has puzzled me for a long time." Chapter 1096. The reason why Ji Tianxing thought so was because he had seen the mysterious pearl in Yun Yao's mind. That ocean blue pearl was very mysterious and had a powerful aura. It was not any weaker than his heaven-mending pearl. It was definitely an extraordinary divine item. Long Yunxiao was startled for a moment before revealing a look of understanding. He nodded and said, "In the ancient legends, Goddess Yaoguang sacrificed her life to plant a bloodline curse on the demon race. If Yao Yao is really related to Goddess Yaoguang, it is not hard to understand how she could remove the curse. However, this matter is really hard to believe." Ji Tianxing looked at him calmly and said in a deep voice, "There are many ancient legends that have been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Naturally, there is a reason and basis for them. Those seemingly miraculous and incomparably bizarre legends cannot be completely believed, but it is also impossible not to believe." Long Yunxiao nodded and said, "Since that is the case, then I will not waste your time. You should quickly go find the great divine master and think of a way to save Yao Yao. I will take my leave for now. If there is any news about Yao Yao, remember to inform me." Finished speaking, he cupped his hands towards Ji Tianxing and was about to get up and leave. Ji Tianxing suddenly thought of something and quickly reached out to stop him. Emperor, please wait. I still have something to ask you. Long Yunxiao stopped and turned his head to look at him. He asked, what is it? Ji Tianxing did not beat around the bush and asked in a deep voice, Emperor, do you know about divine General Yu Tianhong who is guarding the border of the western wilderness? Long Yunxiao was startled. He frowned and asked, what is it? You have no interaction with this person. Why do you suddenly want to ask about him? Could it be that he has offended you? Ji Tianxing did not deny it. He looked at him calmly and said, can you tell me about this person? Long Yunxiao's mouth curved into a cold smile. He said in a playful tone, I have been secretly watching this person Yu Tianhong. I can be considered to have a thorough understanding of him. I will not comment on this person's temperament and way of doing things for the time being. However, he has always been very close to the third prince. Their relationship seems to be unusual. Third Prince Long Zai-Tian? No wonder. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows as a cold light flashed in his eyes. He suddenly came to a realization and finally understood the reason. No wonder he had no enmity with Yu Tianhong, but Yu Tianhong just watched him die and didn't save him. Yu Tianhong even wanted him to be killed by demon martial Dark Knight. It was all because of the third prince, Long Zai-Tian. Long Yunxiao saw that his expression was a little strange, so he quickly asked, Tianxing, what's going on? Did Yu Tianhong attack you? Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, don't make wild guesses. I know what I'm doing. You don't have to worry about it. Long Yunxiao looked at him deeply, but didn't ask any more questions. He bid farewell and left. Ji Tianxing watched his back as he left. He frowned and pondered for a moment before walking out of the study. He first called for the housekeeper. After a few words of advice, he left Tianxing Palace and rushed to Black Feather Palace. When he arrived at Black Feather Palace, Divine Master Blackfeather was sitting upright in the cold main hall, meditating silently. He walked into the main hall and stood in front of Divine Master Blackfeather. He bowed and said, Imperial Prince Ji Tianxing greets Great Divine Master. Divine Master Blackfeather slowly opened his eyes and looked at him calmly. He nodded slightly and said, Since you're here, tell me about Yun Yao's situation. Great Divine Master, it's like this. Ji Tianxing told him the truth and the process of the matter in full detail. After he finished, he looked at Divine Master Blackfeather with eyes full of hope and asked worriedly, Great Divine Master, given Yun Yao's current situation, do you have any way to save her? Divine Master Blackfeather frowned and said with a grave expression, I didn't expect that the Demon Emperor's methods would be so sinister and despicable. He transformed Yun Yao into the Blood God. Although I've lived for countless years, I've never heard of such a thing. I've never heard of Yun Yao's situation, and there's no precedent in history. Tianxing, please forgive me for not being able to do anything. I'm sorry. Divine Master Blackfeather's words were like a bolt from the blue to Ji Tianxing. He was full of hope and expectation as he fled from the northern desert. He wanted to escape back to Zhongzhou no matter what. He thought that the great Divine Master would have a way to save Yun Yao as long as he returned to the Emperor's mansion. However, he didn't expect that even Divine Master Blackfeather couldn't do anything. How is this possible? Great Divine Master, you're knowledgeable and powerful. You must have a way. He was unwilling to give up. He looked at Divine Master Blackfeather with a pleading face and said, Great Divine Master, please help me. Only you can save Yun Yao. Divine Master Blackfeather looked troubled. After thinking for a while, he said in a deep voice, Tianxing, don't worry. I won't leave you in the lurch. Send Yun Yao back to the Cloud Spirit Palace first so that she can rest and recuperate. Miracle Dr. Bailey should be able to buy some time for her and slow down the demonization. I also need some time to read the ancient books and history books to find a solution for you. Ji Tianxing knew that Divine Master Blackfeather had tried his best. This was the best he could do. He couldn't ask for more. He could only bow to Divine Master Blackfeather and say sincerely, Great Divine Master, I thank you on behalf of Yun Yao. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave now. Go ahead. Divine Master Blackfeather nodded slightly and waved his hand. Ji Tianxing left the hall with a heavy heart. He left the Black Feather Palace and flew toward the exit of the emperor's mansion. He didn't dare to waste any time. He could only send Yun Yao back to the Cloud Spirit Palace as soon as possible and let Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi take care of her. As long as Yun Yao's problem wasn't solved, he couldn't be at ease. With Yun Yao's current demonization, her appearance would become even more ferocious in at most a month. She wouldn't look like a human at all. At that time, she would also grow to 3 meters tall. Her body would be strong and muscular. Her skin would be black and she would even grow thick hair. Tianxing's heart clenched at the thought of this. After leaving the emperor's mansion, he flew across the sky and rushed toward the Cloud Spirit Palace. Back then, he was only at the Sky Origin Realm. It took him about 2 days to get to the Cloud Spirit Palace from Zhongzhou. Now, his speed had increased by a few times. It only took him half a day to reach the Cloud Spirit Palace. When he flew across the sea of clouds and landed on the square outside the Cloud Spirit Palace, it was already midnight. The guards outside the palace gate were stunned for a while before they recognized him. Then, the guards were surprised and excited. They quickly knelt down and saluted him. Ji Tianxing didn't have time to care about the guards. He quickly ran into the Cloud Spirit Palace and asked the leader of the guards to inform Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi. He waited in the hall for about 15 minutes. Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, and Yun Zhongqi rushed over. The 3 of them were very excited. They quickly ran into the hall. When they saw Ji Tianxing, they couldn't help but exclaim, "Tianxing, you're finally back." Chapter 1097. For the past year, Divine Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, and his wife had been worried and praying for him every day and night. They had been waiting day and night for Ji Tianxing's safe return. At this moment, the 3 of them were very excited and full of emotions. After entering the main hall, the 3 of them surrounded Ji Tianxing and asked about his well-being. "Tianxing, I heard that you broke into the northern desert alone and entered the Demon King's lair to rescue Yao Yao? You must have suffered a lot and experienced countless dangers in the northern desert alone, right? Thank God, you made a trip to the northern desert and came back alive. That's incredible. Tianxing, did you rescue Yao Yao?" After not seeing each other for a year, the 3 of them had too many things to say to Ji Tianxing and too many questions to ask him. Ji Tianxing quickly pulled the 3 of them to sit down and said with a smile, "Master, father-in-law, mother-in-law, don't worry. I've brought Yao Yao back. I know that you've been on tenterhooks every day for the past year, worrying about me and Yao Yao. But don't worry, it's all over now." While talking to the 3 of them, he also observed their condition. When the Demon King intercepted the wedding procession and kidnapped Yun Yao, he severely injured Divine Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, and his wife. Bailey Ningsu's injury was the most serious and she almost lost her life. Although she survived and recovered a lot after a year of recuperation, her complexion had recovered a lot. However, there were hidden injuries in her body that greatly reduced her strength and made her look older. Yun Zhongqi looked the same on the surface, but there were hidden injuries in his body. His strength was much weaker than before, and his soul aura was also weaker than before. Only Divine Dr. Bailey still looked the same, with white hair and a weak body. Of course, he looked older than before, and his waist was hunched even more. Ji Tianxing saw this and his heart was full of pity. His hatred for the Demon King also deepened. After everyone chatted for a while, Bailey Ningsu asked, "Tianxing, you said that Yao Yao came back with you, but where is she? Mother hasn't seen her for a year. Quickly ask her to come out and let Mother take a look." Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi had the same thought as well. They looked at him with hopeful eyes. "Okay, I'll ask her to come out now." Ji Tianxing nodded and silently took out the broken sword, opening the exit of the sword world. Shwa! With a flash of white light, Yun Yao appeared in the hall and stood in front of everyone. Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi and his wife looked at her expectantly. However, when everyone saw her face clearly, they were stunned on the spot. Their faces were full of astonishment as their eyes widened. Yun Yao was wearing a long white dress. Her feet were bare as she stood in the middle of the hall. She was already 2 meters tall and slender, with long silver hair hanging down to her waist. In her big clear eyes, there was a pair of blood-red pupils, like the eyes of a demon. Her lips were dark purple and her skin was suffused with a black aura. Her fingernails were also black, sharp and long. No matter how one looked at her, she didn't look like a human girl. She looked more like a demon. Oh my God! Yao Yao, my daughter, how did you become like this? Bailey Ningsu covered her mouth with both hands. She looked like she was in great pain. Tears welled up in her eyes and her voice was a little hoarse. Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi also came to their senses. Their expressions were very ugly. They were shocked and worried. Tianxing, what's going on? Miracle Dr. Bailey asked as he released his divine sense to check on Yun Yao's condition. Yun Zhongqi frowned and asked in a low voice, Tianxing, how did Yao Yao become like this? She's like a demon, witch? Tianxing was also very depressed. He wanted to explain, but his voice was very dry. In the end, he could only lower his head and say helplessly, I'm sorry. I tried my best. The Demon King's methods are too despicable. Yun Yao looked at her parents and grandfather expressionlessly. She said in a calm voice, Grandfather, father, mother, this has nothing to do with Tianxing. He risked his life to save me. He almost lost his life several times. He tried his best. It's the Demon King. He used an ancient demon Dao secret technique to demonize me. I became a demon under his control and worked for him. Yun Yao's voice was very calm. She explained to her parents and grandfather what had happened. In the past 2 months, she had suffered a great deal of guilt, self-blame, and inferiority. She also had a strong sense of anger and hatred. Now that she mentioned what had happened, it was no doubt rubbing salt on her wounds. But she endured it silently. She looked calm and indifferent, burying all the anger and pain in her heart. She didn't want the people closest to her to be sad, in pain, and worried for her. After a long time, Bailey Ningsu wiped her tears and stopped sobbing. Everyone quieted down. Tianxing said with a serious face, I've asked the great divine master of the monarch mansion. He couldn't do anything. He could only let Yao Yao rest in Cloud Spirit Palace. He needs some time to read ancient books and find a way to save Yao Yao. Dr. Bailey nodded and said in a serious tone, Tianxing, don't worry. I will take good care of Yao Yao. I will do everything I can to cure her. Yun Zhongqi frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he thought of something and his eyes flashed. He hurriedly said to everyone, Ningsu, take Tianxing and leave first. Arrange a place for him to stay and let him rest. Don't worry, I have a way to save Yao Yao. Tianxing, Bailey Ningsu, and Dr. Bailey looked at Yun Zhongqi and asked in unison, what method do you have? Yun Zhongqi shook his head and said with a serious face, I can't tell you about this. Just rest well and leave it to me. After saying that, he took Yun Yao out of the hall and into the most heavily guarded secret room in Cloud Spirit Palace. The secret room was 100 meters wide and was filled with heaven and earth spiritual qi. The walls were filled with cabinets that stored all kinds of elixirs and cultivation resources. In the corner of the secret room, there was a 10,000-year-old frozen jade bed. Yun Zhongqi asked Yun Yao to sit on the frozen jade bed so that she could cultivate in peace. After Yun Yao entered her cultivation state, Yun Zhongqi took out a treasure chest from the cabinet in the corner of the secret room. He carefully undid the layers of seals on the chest and spent a quarter of an hour to open it. Then he took out a palm-sized dark golden jade token from the treasure chest. It has been more than 20 years. I have never used this item since he left it behind. I hope he will fulfill his promise and come here. Perhaps he is the only one who can save Yao Yao. Yun Zhongqi held the dark golden jade tablet with both hands and murmured with hope. After saying that, he channeled his divine soul's white light into the dark golden jade tablet. Chapter 1098. In the dark secret chamber, Yun Yao sat cross-legged on the frigid jade bed. She was meditating with her eyes closed. Yun Zhongqi stood in the corner with his hands behind his back. He stared at the star chart on the wall and waited silently. After about 4 hours, A dazzling golden light suddenly penetrated the secret chamber's defensive formation and flew into the secret chamber. Swoosh! The golden light landed in the middle of the secret chamber and revealed the figure of a burly man. He was a middle-aged man in a purple robe with a wide dark golden cape draped over his shoulders. His snow-white hair was tied up by a dark golden dragon's tendon and draped behind his head. He looked dignified. His facial features were as tough and resolute as a knife, and his eyes were as vast as the starry sky. Yun Zhongqi sensed this person's arrival and immediately turned to look at him. After seeing the purple-robed man's face clearly, Yun Zhongqi hurriedly stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Palace Master." There was no doubt that this mysterious and powerful purple-robed man was the Palace Master of the monarch residence. The Palace Master looked at Yun Zhongqi calmly and said in a dignified voice, "When I left back then, I left behind a spirit summoning tablet. You can ask me to help you once when you're in danger. Now that I've fulfilled my promise, you can tell me what you want." Yun Zhongqi nodded and said solemnly, "Palace Master, I had no choice but to use the spirit summoning tablet. I'm sorry to have to trouble you. I'm asking you to help me tonight because my daughter, Yun Yao, has indeed encountered a problem that we can't solve." After saying that, he pointed at Yun Yao, who was lying on the frigid jade bed. The Palace Master turned to look at Yun Yao. After seeing her face clearly, he immediately frowned. "Has Yun Yao been demonized?" Yun Zhongqi nodded again and explained to the Palace Master, "Palace Master, when the Demon King kidnapped my daughter, he brought her back to the Heavenly Devil Palace and used an ancient demon Dao's secret technique." After hearing the entire story, the Palace Lord's frown deepened and his gaze turned even gloomier. "As I expected, the Demon Emperor's target is the Neptunian Divine Pearl," he murmured to himself as killing intent flashed through his eyes. A worried expression appeared on Yun Zhongqi's face, and he said in a solemn voice, "Palace Lord, the Demon Monarch has transformed me into the Blood God's son, and I've become like this. There has never been such a precedent in history, and we are all helpless. 21 years ago, my daughter lost her life. It was you who saved her and gave her a new life. Now that something like this has happened, only you can save her. This junior begs you." After he finished speaking, Yun Zhongqi cupped his fists and bowed deeply to the Mansion Lord. The Palace Lord looked at Yun Yao expressionlessly and said calmly, "Yun Yao, even if Yun Yao has become like this, I can still save her and help her regain her original appearance. Even if she has been transformed into a Blood God's son, all I need to do is undo the seal on the Neptunian Divine Pearl and use its power to purify her demonic body and bloodline. However, you should remember what I told you after saving her in the past." Yun Zhongqi let out a huge sigh of relief inside when he heard that. However, he was still rather hesitant. He asked, "Palace Lord, are you still going to take my daughter away in the end?" "That's right," the Palace Lord said in a dignified voice. "From the day she was reborn, she was no longer just the young Palace Lord of the Cloud Soul Palace. She had another mission as well. In a year at most, I will leave the Central Plain with her and go to a distant place." Yun Zhongqi frowned and pleaded with a troubled look on his face, "Mansion Master, ever since my daughter married Tianqing, we've been through a great ordeal. They've been through so many life-threatening situations, and they've always been apart more than together. If you want to take my daughter away, she definitely won't allow it with her personality. I beg you, Palace Lord, to give them 2 more years and let them be together for 2 more years." The Palace Lord said expressionlessly, "There's no room for discussion. As for how you're going to convince them, that's your problem." Yun Zhongqi's face was filled with helplessness as he sighed. The Palace Lord waved his hand and said, "Yun Zhongqi, I'm going to save Yun Yao. Wait outside. Don't let anyone disturb me." "Yes, Palace Lord." Yun Zhongqi clasped his hands and bowed. He could only leave the secret room and wait outside. The secret room fell silent again. Only the Palace Lord and Yun Yao remained. The Palace Lord strode over to the glacial jade bed and sent out a streak of golden light with a wave of his hand. The golden light flew into Yun Yao's head and immediately silenced her soul. She fell into a deep slumber. Her body fell limply, and she lay on the glacial jade bed without moving at all. Afterwards, the palace lord waved his hands with lightning-like speed. He formed a profound seal and cast out an ancient seal. 99 ancient golden characters surged out of his palms and drilled into Yunyao's forehead like flowing water. The 99 golden characters with mysterious power entered the depths of her head and enveloped the Neptunian divine pearl. Swish, 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 swish. The many mysterious characters revolved around the Neptunian divine pearl and quickly danced around it, releasing tremendous power. The invisible seals on the Neptunian divine pearl were removed layer by layer very soon. 10 seconds later, all 33 seals were removed. The Neptunian divine pearl's power was released, and it immediately flew out of Yunyao's head. Swish! The Neptunian divine pearl hovered in the air as it pulsed with devastating power. It shone with dazzling, icy blue light. The icy blue light enveloped Yunyao's body, making her look dreamy and blurry. The palace lord waved his hands sternly and continued to cast a technique with his soul. He formed a profound seal and sent it into the Neptunian divine pearl. The Neptunian divine pearl revolved and shone with icy blue light as it rapidly shrank. Unknowingly, 15 minutes passed. The entire Neptunian divine pearl had actually melted, turning into an extremely dense ball of icy blue light. This was a terrifying power that could destroy the world. Aside from that, there was a strand of dark purple mist within the icy blue light. The palace lord stared at the ball of blue light and murmured, "A fragment of the goddess Yaoguang's soul is sealed within the Neptunian divine pearl. If I release it and fuse it with Yunyao, I'll be able to purify Yunyao's demonic body and bloodline, as well as give her a sliver of the goddess Yaoguang's divine power. At that time, not only will she recover her original appearance, but her strength will also skyrocket with the goddess's legacy." As he said that, he continued to cast a secret technique, controlling the strand of dark purple mist to separate from the ball of icy blue light. Swish! The dark purple mist flew out of the ball of light and turned into a purple figure that was half a meter tall. This was a beautiful goddess with peerless beauty. She was like a fairy from the 9 heavens. Her appearance were actually 80% similar to Yunyao. Clearly, this was a fragment of the goddess Yaoguang's soul. When the palace lord saw the purple figure of the goddess, he immediately frowned. His face darkened as he murmured to himself, How can this be? Even if the goddess Yaoguang's 3 souls have been destroyed, there should still be 7 fragments left. Red, orange, yellow, green. Purple? This is the goddess Yaoguang's 7th fragment? Thinking up to there, he smiled bitterly and sighed, "You really are a goddess after all. Yaoguang, oh Yaoguang, I never thought that you would still have something up your sleeves even after your death. You actually separated the 7 fragments and sealed them separately. I've done everything I could, taking every conceivable possibility into account, but I could only find your 7th fragment. It looks like apart from this Neptunian divine pearl, there are 6 other divine pearls in the world that seal your 6 fragments." A year later, I will come to Cloud's spirit palace again and take her away. Yun Zhongqi was originally filled with joy and relief, but when he heard this, the smile on his face quickly disappeared. However, he could only cup his fists and bow. His tone was solemn as he said, "Junior understands. Thank you for saving me, Lord Manorhead." The mansion master did not pay any attention to him. His body turned into a beam of golden light, pierced through the secret chamber, and disappeared into the sky. Yun Zhongqi was stunned for a moment before he left the secret chamber to report the good news to Ji Tianxing and the others. Miracle Dr. Bailey, Ji Tianxing, and Bailey Ningsu were resting in their respective residences. Although they were resting, the 3 of them were worried about Yunyao's safety. They could not fall asleep or cultivate in peace. When they heard the news from the guards, the 3 of them hurriedly left their residences and rushed to the main hall of Cloud's spirit palace. When the 3 of them entered the main hall, they saw Yun Zhongqi sitting in the middle of the hall and sipping tea with a smile on his face. Seeing that he was in a good mood, everyone's eyes lit up. They had a feeling that things had gone smoothly. Before Miracle Dr. Bailey sat down, he hurriedly asked, "Xianxia, how is Yao Yao's situation? Has she been saved?" Ji Tianxing also asked with concern, "Father-in-law, has Yao Yao's problem been resolved?" Yun Xianxia nodded slightly and said with a smile, "That's right. A peerless powerhouse saved Yao Yao. He has already removed the demonic qi from her body and purified her demonic body and bloodline. This is a blessing in disguise for Yao Yao. Not only has she recovered her original appearance, but her strength has also skyrocketed." Hearing his words, Ji Tianxing and Miracle Dr. Bailey, the father and daughter pair, smiled excitedly. Everyone hurriedly urged Yun Xianxia and dragged him to the secret room to check on Yun Yao's situation. After a while, everyone entered the secret room and saw Yun Yao sleeping on the ice jade bed. Seeing that Yun Yao had indeed recovered her original appearance and her strength and aura had become stronger, everyone was completely relieved. Ji Tianxing secretly released his divine soul energy to check on Yun Yao's mind. He found that the blue pearl in her mind had disappeared. He frowned and thought for a while. He vaguely guessed the reason and thought to himself, "The pearl in Yao Yao's mind is the same as my heaven-mending pearl. They are both divine items. Now that the pearl has disappeared, did that peerless powerhouse borrow the power of the pearl to help Yao Yao recover her original appearance? That pearl is mysterious and powerful. It contains a power that can destroy heaven and earth. What kind of powerhouse is able to refine it? The strength of a soul-refining realm cultivator is definitely not enough. At the very least, it has to be a supreme primordial soul realm cultivator, right?" Thinking of this, he sent a voice transmission to Yun Xianxia and asked, "Father-in-law, can you tell me who the peerless powerhouse that saved Yao Yao is?" Yun Xianxia was talking to Miracle Dr. Bailey and Bailey Ningsu. They were chatting happily and their faces were full of smiles. Suddenly, when he heard Ji Tianxing's voice transmission, his body shook and the smile on his face disappeared. He found an excuse and asked Miracle Dr. Bailey and Bailey Ningsu to leave the secret room. When only he, Ji Tianxing, and Yun Yao were left in the secret room, he said with a serious face, "Tianxing, I already knew that this matter couldn't be hidden from you. However, I can't reveal the identity of that peerless powerhouse for now. Maybe you will have the chance to know in the future." Hearing him say this, Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and thought to himself, "There are only 2 or 3 known primordial soul supremes in the world. The only people who would save Yao Yao are the Emperor and the Palace Lord. If the Emperor didn't save her, then it must be the Palace Lord." Yun Xianxia sighed and continued, "Tianxing, there's something I have to tell you. You have to be mentally prepared." Ji Tianxing saw his strange expression and had a bad feeling. He nodded and said, "Father-in-law, please tell me." Yun Xianxia said in a low voice, 21 years ago, Yao Yao died when she was born. Your mother-in-law took out a Nirvana divine crystal and barely managed to extend Yao Yao's life for a few months. At the critical moment, that peerless powerhouse came to Cloud Spirit Palace and used a divine item to save Yao Yao, allowing Yao Yao to be reborn. However, that peerless powerhouse had a condition. 20 years later, he had to take Yao Yao away from Zhongzhou and go to an extremely distant place to complete an extremely important task. Last night, that peerless powerhouse mentioned this again and only gave me 1 year. Chapter 1100. In a year's time, he will take Yao Yao and leave Zhong State? Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows and revealed a worried expression. His expression became serious. Yun Xianxia nodded silently and said calmly, 21 years ago, when he saved Yao Yao, I agreed to his conditions. No one can go against his wishes, so we must fulfill this condition. In a year's time, Yao Yao will also be taken away by him. After a pause, he said sincerely, Tianxing, you and Yao Yao still have a year's time. You must cherish it. Ji Tianxing nodded and said firmly, Father-in-law, don't worry. There's still a year's time. Perhaps things will take a turn for the better. I will do everything I can to keep Yao Yao here. Yun Xianxia shook his head and said bleakly, Tianxing, I know you are the #1 genius of Zhong State and can create countless miracles. However, a year's time is too short. That peerless expert's strength is beyond our imagination. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly to express his understanding. He sighed inwardly. After all, he is the #1 expert of the continent. He is someone who stands at the pinnacle of martial arts in Tianxian continent. Although he knew that the will of that expert could not be resisted, he did not give up. However, he would never give up or accept his fate. He would do his best to protect his wife. After a moment of silence, Yun Zhongqi continued, Tianxing, Yao Yao is already safe and sound. However, she still needs to sleep for half a month before she can wake up naturally. Once she wakes up, her strength will reach an even higher realm. You don't need to stay here and delay your cultivation. Go back to the monarch manor first. We will take good care of Yao Yao. If there are any changes or news, we will inform you immediately. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment. Half a month was indeed a long time, so he nodded in agreement. All right, father-in-law, I will take my leave first. He bowed to Yun Zhongqi, then turned and left the secret room. Then he bid farewell to Bailey Ningsu and Bailey Dr. Bailey and left Cloud Soul Palace as fast as lightning. Half a day later, he returned to Central State City. After returning to the monarch mansion, he did not return to Tianxing Palace. Instead, he went straight to Yunshao Palace to look for Long Yunshao. He entered Yunshao Palace. Under the lead of the guards, he entered the back garden. In the back garden, hundreds of flowers were in full bloom. The forest was dense, and there was also a small lake and a bamboo forest swaying in the wind. The environment was very elegant. There was a quaint and elegant pavilion in the middle of the lake. There were 8 maids standing around the pavilion. There was a guqin placed in the middle of the pavilion, and a beautiful woman wearing a brocade dress was plucking the strings. The sound of the zither was crisp and pleasing to the ear, melodious and mellow, causing one's mind to be clear and refreshed. Ji Tianxing recognized her with a single glance. She was the heavenly consort Ansuan. Her hair was combed into a bun, and she wore a phoenix coronet and a golden buyao. In addition, the son of heaven, Long Yunshao, was also sitting in the pavilion. He was leisurely sipping tea and listening to the melodious zither music. When the song ended, he revealed an expression of reminiscence. He gently put down the teacup and nodded with a smile. He clapped his hands and said, "The heavenly consort's zither skills are becoming more and more exquisite. This song, the ballad of 10,000 rivers and mountains, made this monarch daydream. It was as if I was there, in the midst of 1,000 mountains and 10,000 rivers. I saw the great mountains and rivers of the human race's 9 regions." And Suan's beautiful face revealed a faint smile. Her eyes were gentle and sweet as she said softly, "Son of heaven, you've been working hard for the past few months. It's my honor and wish to be able to soothe your mind with the zither music." Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows. He thought to himself, it seems like Long Yunshao and Ansuan's relationship has improved. Although they're not in love, they're still respectful to each other. I didn't expect Ansuan to have also reached the heaven origin realm after not seeing her for a year. She's changed a lot. Her expression and temperament seem to have become gentler and more reserved. She's no longer as simple and stubborn as before. This is also good. Long Yunshao and Ansuan aren't bad people. If they can get along peacefully and love each other, it'll be a good thing for everyone. At this time, a guard walked out of the pavilion and respectfully reported, "Reporting to your majesty, Imperial Prince Tianxing has come to visit." Long Yunshao and Ansuan were both stunned. They quickly stopped talking and turned to look outside the pavilion. Ji Tianxing walked into the pavilion. He calmly cupped his hands and greeted, "Greetings, son of heaven, heavenly consort." Long Yunshao and Ansuan quickly stood up and returned the greeting. They exchanged a few pleasantries with Ji Tianxing. After both parties were seated, Long Yunshao asked, "Tianxing, how's Yao Yao?" He asked about Yun Yao's situation as soon as they met. Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment. He slightly turned his head to look at Ansuan. Ansuan's expression didn't change. Her eyes were still calm and gentle. She didn't feel conflicted because of this. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing realized that she had indeed changed a lot. He said to Long Yunshao, "Yao Yao's problem has been solved. She even profited from the disaster. Her strength has greatly increased. There's actually such a good thing? Then this monarch is relieved. Long Yunxiao's face was full of surprise. He asked, Tianxing, then why did you come to find this monarch today? Ji Tianxing glanced at Ensuan and calmly said, it's still the same thing as last time. It's about the western wasteland. He didn't need to say anything else. Long Yunxiao immediately understood. He turned his head to look at Ensuan and said, Heavenly consort, this monarch and Tianxing have important matters to discuss. You may leave. Ensuan bowed and said, Understood. When she walked to Ji Tianxing's side, she stopped and bowed to Ji Tianxing. With a sincere expression, she apologized. Imperial Prince Tianxing, several months ago, this consort heard news from the Yangon region that you had gone to the Qingkuan sect and had some conflicts with them. Those deacons and elders of our sect are all frogs in a well. They've never seen the world. They unintentionally offended you. Please don't take it to heart. Ji Tianxing was stunned. He didn't expect her to already know about this matter. She even went out of her way to apologize. Seeing her bow and apologize, he waved his hand and said with a smile, Heavenly consort, your words are too serious. Your sect master is a reasonable person. He's a wise and far-sighted person. As for the small conflict between me and your sect, it's already in the past. Naturally, I won't take it to heart. Hearing him say this, Ensuan clearly breathed a sigh of relief. She smiled and nodded. Then this consort will represent our sect to thank Imperial Prince Tianxing for his magnanimity. After saying this, she led the maids out of the pavilion. When only Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao were left in the pavilion, Ji Tianxing opened his mouth to speak. A year ago, when I left Central State City, I was ambushed by Murong Lingfeng and the 4 great dragon protectors. I fought back and killed them all. Now that a year has passed, what's the situation in Central State? What's the Murong family's reaction? Long Yunxiao curled his lips and revealed a playful smile. Back then, this monarch had said that after you left, this monarch would focus on dealing with the Murong family. The matter of Murong Lingfeng being killed is no longer a secret. Countless powerhouses and powers know that it was you who did it. However, the Murong family can't find you. No matter how angry they are, it's useless. Moreover, in this year, this monarch has suppressed the Murong family to the point where it's difficult for them to move. They're already powerless to take revenge on you. I'm also unable to provide any help to Long Zai-Tian. Speaking up to here, he frowned and thought for a moment. Then he said in a low voice, However, the Murong family's patriarch, Murong Zheng, is an extremely shrewd person. He can't be underestimated. No matter how difficult the Murong family's situation is, you still have to be on your guard. Be careful of his revenge. After all, that old man is a powerhouse at the 5th level of the spirit refinement realm. If he disregards everything to take revenge for his son, your situation will be worrying. Chapter 1101. After understanding the Murong family situation, Ji Tianxing was relieved. The current Murong family was no longer a threat to him, so he didn't need to worry about them. He then asked Long Yunxiao, Son of Heaven, you've been secretly observing the divine general of the West Wilderness for many years, so you must have information on him, right? Can you give me a copy? Long Yunxiao raised his eyebrows and said in a playful tone, It seems that I didn't guess wrong. The divine general of the West Wilderness offended you quite a bit? I can give you information on Yu Tianhong, but you have to tell me, what kind of grudge do you have between you two? Ji Tianxing didn't want to reveal this matter, but Long Yunxiao insisted, so he could only tell the truth. When I was returning to the central region from the northern desert, I was chased by several demon commanders. I had no choice but to take a detour to the West Wilderness, and was chased by the demon commanders, so I fled to Mang City. I told him my identity and purpose, and asked him to open the city gate and help me force the demon commanders back. But he refused to open the gate, and deliberately pretended not to know me, and even framed me as a demon spy. Looking at his reaction, he obviously recognized me, and deliberately wanted to kill me. Fortunately, I had another opportunity. so I was able to escape the demon commander's pursuit and safely return to the central region. Long Yunxiao suddenly realized, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He sneered, "This Yutanhong is really abominable, he deserves to die." Even if the demon race was in front of him, he still didn't care about the righteousness of the human race, and insisted on getting rid of you for the third prince. Ji Tianxing nodded and said in a low voice, "Long Zai Tian has always wanted to kill me, I will remember this grudge and will definitely take my revenge." However, Long Zai Tian's status is not ordinary, and his power is deeply rooted. I can only follow the vine to find the melon, and slowly investigate and plan. And that's good. Long Yunxiao nodded in agreement and solemnly warned, "Long Zai Tian's power is slightly stronger than mine, and his methods are sinister and despicable, you must be careful." Finished speaking, he took out a jade slip from his spatial ring and gave it to Ji Tianxing. This jade slip records Yu Tianhong's life information. Take it and slowly study it. If you are ready to take revenge and begin to act, if you have any difficulties or needs, feel free to tell this monarch. This monarch will definitely do his best to help. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly, accepted the jade slip, and said goodbye to him. After leaving Cloudy Palace, he went straight back to Tianxing Palace. After returning to the study room, he took out the jade slip that Long Yunxiao had given him and carefully read the information within it. He saw that there were tens of thousands of words of information recorded in the jade slip, all of which were about Yu Tianhong's deeds. Yu Tianhong was over 170 years old. He was at the 5th level of the spirit refining realm and was the divine general in charge of guarding the West Wilderness. The Yu family's clan was located in River Origin City, one of the 100 cities in the Central Plains. They were extremely wealthy and powerful. Back when Ji Tianxing and the 9 geniuses were fighting for the position of Heavenly Stellar Region Lord, one of them was a young genius called Yu Zhengfei. This person was Yu Tianhong's eldest son and the most outstanding talent of the Yu family's younger generation. In addition, the jade slip also recorded some of the important events that had happened to Yu Tianhong and the Yu family in the past 100 years. Through these events, Ji Tianxing understood the Yu family's power in detail, as well as Yu Tianhong's nature and methods. After reading the information in the jade slip, he couldn't help but have a question in his mind. With Yu Tianhong's strength and the Yu family's power in River Origin City, they could be considered as one of the top 10 clans in the human race. If there wasn't enough temptation and reason, Yu Tianhong wouldn't have to work so hard for Long Zaitian. Could it be that Long Zaitian also planted a divine venomous goo in Yu Tianhong? It's very possible. Even Duanmu Huang and Murong Zheng were implanted with divine venomous goo by Long Zaitian, Yu Tianhong wouldn't be able to escape. Thinking of this, his eyes flashed with a cold light as he muttered to himself, "Long Zaitian, one day, I will announce to the world that you used divine venomous goo to control the 2 clans and the divine general. I will report this to the emperor and destroy your reputation and consign you to eternal damnation." At this moment, footsteps suddenly came from outside the study room. A guard walked to the door and reported respectfully, "Reporting to the region lord, the prince of the water clan Tai has come to visit." Suddenly hearing this news, Ji Tianxing was startled. "Tai? This guy has always been arrogant and cold, why would he take the initiative to visit me?" He suddenly remembered something and revealed a playful smile as he guessed, "Could it be that he's here for that matter?" Then, he put away the jade slip and left the study room. When he walked into the guest hall, he saw Tai Yi standing in the middle of the hall, expressionlessly thinking about something. Tai Yi was still wearing a luxurious purple robe and a golden crown, his aura noble and resolute. After seeing Ji Tianxing, he cupped his hands in greeting and said calmly, "Greetings to Prince Tianxing." Ji Tianxing returned the greeting and asked, "Tai Yi, how come you have time to visit me today? Has the matter of the water clan been resolved?" Tai Yi nodded slightly and said with a serious face, "Currently, the demon clan's army is still gathering at the coastal border and invading our sea area day and night. However, the demon clan's army is like a group of dragons without a leader. Even if they attack day and night, they can only wear each other out and pull at each other. They can't attack deep into our sea area. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for this matter. The Demon Clan's army that attacked us was led by Demon Commander Bloodshura. After you killed Bloodshura, the Demon Clan hasn't chosen a new Demon Commander for the time being. The army is also like a group of dragons without a leader. Ji Tianxing nodded and said, although the Eastern Sea situation is not a problem for now, you still have to be vigilant. The Demon Clan's power is growing very quickly. Tai Yi nodded to show that he understood. He stared at him and said with a complicated tone, when you first entered the northern desert, I was full of emotions and thought that you would never return. I didn't expect you to be so monstrous. You broke into the northern desert alone to save Yunyao and came back alive. Even God Master He you didn't have such courage and means like you. How did you do it? Ji Tianxing chuckled and said, it's a long story. Let's not talk about it. Let's talk about business. What do you want from me? Tai Yi was silent for a while, then said with a serious tone, we made a bet. If you could come back alive from the northern desert, I would be your bodyguard for a year. Now that you have done it, of course, I won't break my promise. Today, I'm here to fulfill my promise. From today onwards, I will be by your side as your personal bodyguard for a period of 1 year. Ji Tianxing was startled when he heard Tai Yi say that. He smiled and waved his hand. Tai Yi, don't be so serious. It was just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Chapter 1102. Tai Yi frowned slightly when he saw that Ji Tianxing did not take the matter seriously and treated it as a joke. He looked at Ji Tianxing firmly and said, as the heir to the imperial court of the water race, I will keep my word. I will not go back on my words. Ji Tianxing stopped smiling when he saw that Tai Yi was serious. He said seriously, all right, let's not talk about being a follower. Let's not talk about this anymore. If you're willing, let's be friends and call each other brothers. What do you think? Tai Yi was stunned and looked at him with a complicated expression. He cupped his hands and praised from the bottom of his heart, Brother Tianxing, I had some opinions about you in the past and had some unpleasant experiences with you. That's because I'm proud and arrogant and I'm jealous of your talent. Now that I've gotten to know you, I've seen your extraordinary talent and noble character, which makes me admire you greatly. This monarch has never made friends, much less sworn brothers, but you are an exception. From now on, you are my brother. If you need my help in the future, I will not hesitate to help. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a smile, if that's the case, I'll thank you first. Tai Yi thought for a moment and said in a low voice, Brother Tianxing, I heard that you killed Murong Lingfeng and the Four Masters when you left Zhongzhou. You were not in Zhongzhou for the past year. The Murong family could not find you even if they wanted to take revenge. But now that you are back, the Murong family will not let you go. You have to be prepared. If you want to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, this monarch will certainly lend you a hand. The Imperial Court of the Water Race has a huge network and spies in Zhongzhou. It will be easy to deal with the Murong family. Don't worry, if the Imperial Court of the Water Race investigates, I will take responsibility. I will let the Imperial Court of the Water Race negotiate with the Imperial Court of the Water Race. I will not let you take the blame. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said with a smile, Tai Yi, thank you for your kindness. I have just returned to Zhongzhou. I will observe the current situation and then make a plan. As for the Murong family, I don't care about them at all. They can't threaten me anyway. The Murong family was nothing to worry about. What was really troublesome for me was the power behind the Murong family. That was my real target. If we deal with the Murong family now, we will only alert the enemy and make them take precautions. Tai Yi's eyes immediately lit up. He nodded solemnly and said, that's right. I've heard about this a long time ago. The Murong clan is working for the third prince of the human imperial court. A few years ago, Murong Lingfeng had visited this monarch several times and tried every possible means to curry favor with this monarch, wanting to rope this monarch in. At that time, I knew that Murong Lingfeng was working for third prince Long Zai. However, this monarch despises Murong Lingfeng, that sissy who is neither a man nor a woman, the most. This monarch didn't give him any face and had the guards chase him away several times. Hearing the word, sissy, Ji Tianxing's eyes flashed with a strange smile. Tai continued, Brother Tianxing, third Prince Long Zai Tian is not someone to be underestimated. He is ambitious and ruthless. His methods are very sinister and despicable. If you want to deal with him, you have to be careful and make ample preparations. This monarch can help you gather information and investigate the third prince. This will allow you to know yourself and your enemy. It will be easier to deal with him. Ji Tianxing nodded and said, That's good. Then I'll leave it to you. Tai said solemnly, Leave this to me. I'll give you an answer within half a month at most. Then, the two talked about the situation in the imperial court. After a quarter of an hour, Tai bid farewell and left Tianxing Palace. Ji Tianxing had just walked out of the guest hall and was about to return to his room. Another guard hurried over and respectfully presented a letter. Reporting to Region Lord, this is a letter sent by the guards of Xingyu Village. They asked this subordinate to present it to you. Xingyu Village? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, Is it Kun Wu or Kuku? Why don't we meet and talk about it? He took the letter back to his room and opened it. He saw a few lines of beautiful handwriting on the letter. It was Kuku's handwriting. Brother Tianxing, Brother Kun Wu and I have to return to the imperial court. The situation is urgent, so we didn't have time to say goodbye to you in person. Please forgive us. Several demon marshals led hundreds of thousands of demon army to attack the borders of Shihuang. They attacked cities and plundered lands along the way, slaughtering the people of the demon race. The war is urgent. Brother Kun Wu has to return to the imperial court and lead the army with father. I also have to go back to cultivate and comprehend secret techniques. The situation in Zhongzhou is not peaceful either. Brother Tianxing, you must take care of your body and be careful. Don't worry, Kuku will work hard to improve her strength and become as strong as you as soon as possible. Ji Tianxing looked at these beautiful words, and Ku's beautiful face appeared in his mind. Her charming and cute smiling face. He could see Kuku's determination and her longing and reluctance to part with him from the words. After a long time, he put the letter away and smiled. He sighed and said to himself, Kuku has finally grown up. Then he gave some instructions to the guards and entered the secret room to cultivate. He had just reached the second level of the spirit cultivation realm not long ago and his strength was not stable yet. He had to cultivate hard to strengthen his foundation. Most importantly, he had always been thinking about the 9 swords of the burial of heaven. Since the burial of heaven taught him the 9 swords of the burial of heaven, he had only cultivated the first move, the sword drawing style. The power of the sword drawing style was far beyond all the trump cards he had cultivated. It showed him the power of the 9 swords of the burial of heaven. Now that he had settled down, he couldn't wait to continue cultivating the second move. He sat cross-legged in the secret room and communicated with the burial of heaven with his divine soul. He asked, Burial of heaven, I plan to cultivate in seclusion for 10 days. Can you teach me the second move of the burial of heaven? The burial of heaven was sleeping in the divine sword, quietly recovering its strength. After a while, it said in a low and serious tone, Teaching you the second move is of course no problem, but you have to remember, don't bite off more than you can chew. You have to do it step by step. Also, cultivating the 9 swords of the burial of heaven is not suitable in a secret room. It is difficult to use. I suggest you sacrifice your divine soul and enter the Kenshin's tomb to cultivate. Only then can you achieve twice the result with half the effort. But Ji Tianxing nodded and followed its suggestion. His divine soul entered the Kenshin's tomb. Sush. His golden sword soul entered the Kenshin's tomb and appeared in the gray and cold wasteland. The sword's soul quickly turned into a human and flew to the end of the wasteland, near the 18 tombstones. Then, the burial of heaven said in a serious tone, The first move of the burial of heaven's 9 swords is the sword drawing style, and the second move is the sword piercing style. Although the name of this sword move is as ordinary and mediocre as the first move. But this is a sword that has been tempered thousands of times and merged with all the sword moves in the world. It is a divine sword that is simple. When this sword is used, a cold star illuminates the sky. Chapter 1103. The second style, sword thrust, had more than 1,000 words. It was mysterious and very obscure. Ji Tianxing memorized the sword techniques mnemonic and listened attentively to Burial of Heaven's teachings. With the experience of cultivating the sword drawing style, it was much easier for him to comprehend the mnemonic of the sword thrust style. His soul studied in Kenshin's tomb for 4 days before he finally figured out the trick and method of the sword thrust style. Then, he used his soul power to condense a sword and began to cultivate this sword technique, 10,000 swords as one. Swish! With a thrust of the sword, a cold light burst out, and the sword energy within 1,000 meters surged. The power of this sword was extraordinary, but Ji Tianxing was not satisfied. He continued to draw and thrust the sword, practicing repeatedly. At present, he was still at the beginning stage of cultivating the 9 swords of Burial of Heaven. He only had the form and did not have the charm of the sword intent. There was no shortcut to cultivating this sword technique. Apart from extraordinary comprehension, he also needed to practice 1,000,000 times. As time passed, Ji Tianxing repeatedly cultivated the 2 sword techniques as if he did not know fatigue and forgot the passage of time. Unknowingly, 10 days had passed. Originally, he only planned to cultivate in seclusion for 10 days, but he was immersed in cultivation and could not extricate himself. He was still practicing the sword technique and constantly comprehending, reflecting, and improving it. When he was confused and puzzled, he would ask Burial of Heaven for advice. Burial of Heaven imparted his experience and gave him many opinions and suggestions, allowing him to quickly comprehend the sword technique's secrets and cultivate more smoothly. Soon, a month had passed. Ji Tianxing's soul continued to cultivate in Kenshin's tomb for a month before finally mastering the second style, sword thrust style. He stood above the wasteland, holding a white sword condensed from his soul in his left hand and his right hand hanging by his side. He looked ahead expressionlessly. He silently accumulated strength and nurtured his sword intent. A moment later, he suddenly drew his sword and attacked at lightning speed. Swish! The soul-light sword was unsheathed and slashed diagonally from bottom to top, creating a shocking sword beam that was 100 meters long, slashing at the gray fog at the end of the wasteland. Swish! This sword was unparalleled in its sharpness and sharpness. It truly had the power to tear apart the heavens and the earth. The sword light slashed into the hazy gray fog, immediately splitting open a huge crack in the gray fog, forming a 1,000-meter-long gully. Without waiting for the gray fog to heal and the empty ravine to be filled, Ji Tianxing continued to attack with his sword and used the second move. Piercing sword style. Swish! The divine soul-shaped sword of light pierced forward with terrifying power. Suddenly, an extremely sharp and condensed sword light pierced through the sky and disappeared. Almost at the same time, the cold light appeared in the gray fog 5 kilometers away. Shwa! The dense gray fog was actually dispersed by the cold light, and a huge hole with a radius of 10 miles appeared. The gray fog in that area actually disappeared into thin air, turning into a blank area. Moreover, the empty space created by Ji Tianxing's sword could not be healed. An invisible sword intent enveloped an area of 5 kilometers, preventing the gray fog from approaching. Ji Tianxing immediately raised his eyebrows, and his eyes shone brightly. He did not expect the power of the piercing sword style to be so terrifying. This was only used in Kenshin's tomb. If he used it in the outside world, this sword would be able to pierce through any defense. Even a soul-level Dharma treasure would not be able to block his sword. In the future, if he advanced to the primordial soul stage, this sword would be able to pierce through the sky and see the galaxy beyond the heavens. It is indeed powerful. The piercing sword style uses all the strength and sword intent, condensing it to the limit, and breaking through a point. Its power is several times stronger than the drawing sword style. Ji Tianxing murmured to himself, his heart filled with shock and emotion. At this moment, he suddenly caught a glimpse of something strange in the empty area of 5 kilometers. He hurriedly flew across the sky and flew to the empty area to observe carefully. He saw that the ground within 5 kilometers was covered in gray rock layers, which had experienced tens of thousands of years. It was simple and ancient. This area was empty, and there was nothing in it. However, Ji Tianxing discovered that there were many crisscrossing lines on the flat gray ground. Every line was a deep groove that was as wide as a palm. The marks were extremely sharp, as if they were drawn by sword qi. There are actually traces of sword qi on the ground? Could there have been an intense battle here? Ji Tianxing looked down at the ground from above and observed the hundreds of lines carefully. Soon, he discovered that the lines were not messy and did not look like they were caused by an intense battle. Someone had deliberately drawn them. Some of the lines were straight and spanned 5 kilometers. Some of the lines were curved and passed through countless lines, as if they were connected to some veins. After observing for a moment, Ji Tianxing was enlightened. I understand now. This is an array formation diagram. So that's how it is. On the gray ground within 5 kilometers, the thousands of crisscrossing lines outlined an extremely mysterious and complicated array formation diagram. Furthermore, the array formation diagram drawn by the thousands of lines was only the tip of the iceberg, a very small part of the array formation. Even more lines and patterns were covered by the vast fog. Ji Tianxing tried a few more times, using the piercing sword style with all his might, wanting to break through the fog and open up more empty areas. However, when the cold light entered the fog, it disappeared, swallowed by the mysterious gray fog, unable to open up more areas. Strange, why would an array formation diagram appear in Kenshin's tomb? Could it be that Kenshin left it behind when he was alive? But that can't be right. Kenshin's tomb only appeared after Kenshin died. He couldn't have had a tomb when he was alive, right? Ji Tianxing stared at the array formation diagram on the ground, frowning as he pondered. The more he thought, the more puzzled he became. Thus, he hurriedly used his soul to send a message to Burial of Heaven for guidance. Burial of Heaven, I broke through the fog in Kenshin's tomb and found an array formation diagram on the ground. What's going on? For the first time, Burial of Heaven did not remain silent or hesitate. He subconsciously asked, "What? You broke through the fog and saw the array formation diagram?" Hearing his reaction, his tone full of doubt, Ji Tianxing was even more puzzled. Burial of Heaven, I just learned the piercing sword style and tried to use it once with all my strength. I actually broke through the fog within a radius of 10 miles. A formation diagram appeared on the ground, but it should be a corner of the entire diagram. I can't see any clues. You know the Kenshin's tomb the best. Don't tell me even you don't know? Burial of Heaven said in a low voice, I know a little more about Kenshin's tomb than you, but I can't say I understand it. After all, after Kenshin died, I have been in a deep sleep for 1,000 years. From the first day I entered Kenshin's tomb, it has always been like this. There is only a wasteland with a radius of a few hundred miles, surrounded by gray fog. I really don't know about the array formation diagram, and I have never heard Kenshin mention it. Of course, my memory is somewhat incomplete. After 1,000 years, I can't remember it clearly. Hearing it say this, Ji Tianxing vaguely understood some things. He thought to himself, it seems that Kenshin's tomb is not that simple. Chapter 1104. Ji Tianxing carefully observed for a long time, memorizing the lines and patterns of the nameless formation. Although he had a premonition that this huge and ancient formation definitely contained some secrets. But the Burial of Heaven knew nothing about this. He had no clue and could not find any clues. He could only put this matter aside for now and slowly study it in the future. Swoosh! Ji Tianxing's soul left Kenshin's tomb and returned to his body. He opened his eyes and ended his seclusion. Although he had been in seclusion for a month, he had been comprehending and cultivating the second style of the 9 swords of the Burial of Heaven. But his soul had been tempered, his martial arts realm had been consolidated, and his physical body had become stronger under the training of his magic power. Imperceptibly, his combat power had increased and became even more powerful. He got up and left the secret room and returned to his room. Not long after, the guard outside the door knew that he had come out of seclusion and quickly came to report the news. Congratulations on coming out of seclusion, Your Excellency. Your divine power has improved again. Reporting to Your Excellency, in the month you were in seclusion, a few princes came to visit you. Someone even sent you a jade scroll and an invitation. As the guard spoke, he took out a jade slip and a scarlet invitation card with golden lettering and handed it over to Ji Tianxing. Who sent it? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and reached out to take the jade scroll and invitation from the guard. He looked at them carefully. The guard replied respectfully, Your Excellency, the jade scroll was sent by the prince of the water clan, Tai. He asked me to personally hand it to you. As for the invitation, it was sent by someone half a month ago. The person who sent the letter did not announce his identity. He only said that you would understand after seeing the invitation. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and waved his hand. I understand. You may leave. After the guard left the room, he stared at the jade scroll and invitation and muttered, the jade scroll sent by Tai should be related to Long Zitian. But this invitation? Who sent it? He picked up the invitation card and looked at it carefully. Opening the jade slip, he saw a few lines of bold and forceful words written on it. They were all common pleasantries. And the name of the invitation card was actually Long Zitian. Long Zitian actually invited Ji Tianxing to the Flying Dragon City as a guest to attend his 40th birthday banquet. After reading the invitation, Ji Tianxing immediately frowned and muttered with a heart full of doubt. Did Long Zitian eat the wrong medicine? Or was his brain flooded with water? He obviously hates me to the bone and wants to kill me with his own hands, but he actually took the initiative to invite me to his birthday banquet. Could it be that he wanted to curry favor with me and take the opportunity to rope me in? No, I know his secret. Our hatred is irreconcilable. There is no way we can reconcile. What is this bastard trying to do? Ji Tianxing held the red invitation card and fell into deep thought and hesitation, unable to make up his mind. He never thought that Long Zitian would actually invite him to the birthday banquet at this time. This was too strange. After pondering for a moment, he suddenly remembered that the birthday banquet mentioned on the invitation card was tomorrow. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing hurriedly called for the guard outside and ordered, "Send someone to ask around the other princes, who else received the invitation card to the third prince's birthday banquet?" The guard bowed and said, "Yes," then quickly carried out the order. Ji Tianxing waited in the room and silently flipped through the invitation card. He continued to flip through it and saw that there was a slip of paper in the invitation card. He took out the slip of paper and looked at it. There was actually a sentence on it. The handwriting was like a dragon flying and phoenix flying, and it was quite imposing. Ji Tianxing, for my birthday banquet, I have invited all the noble families and young elites of the human race. As the #1 genius, you are naturally on the list. Of course, if you are timid and afraid, it's fine if you don't come. Anyway, I don't want to see you. Seeing the two sentences on the slip of paper, he immediately revealed a mocking sneer. The Long Zitian, you are a prince of the imperial court in vain, yet you are so inferior and childish. Since you don't want to see me, then I have to go. So what if this is a conspiracy? You actually used such a clumsy method to goad me. I want to see what you want to do. If Long Zitian only invited him, he would naturally suspect that this was a banquet at Hongmen, or that Long Zitian had some despicable scheme. But Long Zitian had already said that he had invited all the noble families and young geniuses of the human race. Ji Tianxing wanted to take this opportunity to see which noble families of the human race had a close relationship with Long Zitian. Other than that, the Flying Dragon City was one of the 100 cities in the central continent, and was also the third prince's fief and headquarters. Ji Tianxing wanted to take the opportunity to enter the Flying Dragon City and see if he could find any clues or secrets of the third prince. In the past, he and Long Zitian had always been secretly attacking and fighting. This time, Long Zitian actually sent an invitation card in broad daylight. Clearly, he wanted to directly provoke him. How could he endure this? Of course he had to fight back. About 2 hours later, the guard returned to the door and respectfully reported, "Reporting to the domain lord, this subordinate has already investigated the results. Other than you, most of the human race princes in the monarch mansion have received the third prince's birthday banquet invitation. Moreover, several princes have already left the monarch mansion and rushed to the Flying Dragon City to attend the banquet." After listening to the guard's report, Ji Tianxing knew what was going on and was even more determined to attend the banquet. He waved his hand to dismiss the guard and silently meditated in the room. A day passed quickly. Early in the morning of the second day, he left the monarch mansion alone, flew out of the central continent city, and rushed to the Flying Dragon City as fast as lightning. While he was flying, he was still recalling the information about the Flying Dragon City in his mind. The Flying Dragon City was located in the south of the central continent city, about 20,000 miles away. It was a bustling city with hundreds of years of history. The city had a radius of 100 miles, and there were dozens of towns under its jurisdiction, with more than 2 million people. Ever since the imperial court bestowed this ancient city to the third prince more than 10 years ago, this place had become his private territory. Most of his wealth, resources, and trump cards were in the Flying Dragon City. Of course, there were also many of his secrets and dirty secrets hidden in this city. Soon, 6 hours passed, and it was noon. Ji Tianxing flew continuously for 20,000 miles, and finally arrived at the Flying Dragon City. Even from 100 miles away, he could see the ancient city on the vast plains. The tall city walls made of dark brown rocks surrounded the square city, standing tall on the ground. In the center of the city, there was a huge pagoda that was 1,000 meters tall. It had a total of 99 floors, and its entire body was dark gold, looking very dignified and holy. At the top of the pagoda, there was a huge golden dragon statue, shining under the sunlight. Even from 100 miles away, one could clearly see the statue, the golden dragon with its wings spread out. Chapter 1105. Long Zitian's ambition could be seen from the golden dragon statue on the pagoda in the city. He compared himself to a true dragon hiding in the abyss. He had been silently accumulating power, waiting for the right time to soar into the sky. After Ji Tianxing entered the Flying Dragon City, he rushed towards the Flying Dragon Palace while looking up at the pagoda in the center of the city. He sneered in his heart. A hidden dragon in the abyss, dreaming of soaring into the sky and seizing the position of emperor? Long Zitian, if you didn't provoke me, you might really have a chance to defeat Long Yunxiao and seize the throne. But unfortunately, I will definitely not let you succeed. Your dream of becoming an emperor can only be fulfilled in your next life. An hour later, he strolled outside the Flying Dragon Palace. The Flying Dragon Palace was one of Long Zitian's palaces, and also his true lair. The palace occupied a vast area and was extremely luxurious. Its entire body was resplendent in gold and jade, and it was extremely noble and imposing. Outside the wide palace gate, there was a divine dragon statue on the left and right, and 18 silver-armored guards were guarding it. On the 30-meter-tall gate, the words Flying Dragon Palace were written in gold. The palace was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, making the atmosphere seem festive. There was clamorous music coming from the Flying Dragon Palace. Obviously, countless guests had already arrived at the Flying Dragon Palace and were chatting happily inside. When Ji Tianxing walked towards the palace gate, there was still a line at the entrance. More than a dozen well-dressed and well-spoken leaders of wealthy families, as well as young talents in high spirits, were entering the Flying Dragon Palace one after another. These people all brought their attendants and guards, walked to the entrance, showed their invitations to the old butler guarding the door, and offered him a congratulatory gift. Only Ji Tianxing's extravagance was very shabby. He did not have a luxurious carriage or spirit beast, nor did he have any attendants or guards. When the crowd saw him coming to the banquet alone, they could not help but size him up a few times, revealing playful smiles, and secretly discussing with each other. Ji Tianxing ignored the strange gazes of those people, took out the invitation and handed it to the old butler, and offered him a congratulatory gift. He didn't prepare the so-called congratulatory gift in advance. He took out 10,000 spirit stones from his spatial ring at the last minute to make up the number. Every time the old steward accepted a gift, he would shout loudly that a certain person had come to congratulate him on his birthday and present him with gifts such as treasures and rare treasures. Most of the leaders and young talents of the wealthy families would offer valuable resources, treasures, and rare antiques. Even ordinary spirit stones, elixirs, magic tools, and other resources were bound to be astonishing. When it was Ji Tianxing's turn, the old housekeeper's expression changed. He frowned and looked at him with sharp eyes. Then he shouted with a poker face, "Ji Tianxing, territory lord of Tianjin region, is here to congratulate you on your birthday. Here is a gift of 10,000 spiritual stones." The moment the old steward shouted, all the guests outside the door stopped in their tracks, their faces full of astonishment. After everyone regained their senses, they all had complicated expressions on their faces as they looked at the entrance. Some people roared with laughter, some people disgust and disbelief, and some people had expressions of contempt and disdain as they whispered to each other. What did the old butler shout just now? Tianjin region lord? Ji Tianxing is here? Ji Tianxing? That's the youngest region lord, the #1 genius of our family? The crown prince of the monarch mansion? Wow! Even he is here to congratulate the third prince? It seems that the third prince has a wide circle of friends and has a wide range of connections. I heard the old butlers say 10,000 spiritual stones? Did I hear wrongly? I heard it too. Ji Tianxing is here to congratulate the third prince and only brought 10,000 spiritual stones as a gift. Isn't this too funny? He is the region lord of Tianjin region, how can he be so stingy? This is going to be a good show. Ji Tianxing is obviously trying to embarrass the third prince. It seems that Ji Tianxing is not here with good intentions. All the guests discussed animatedly as they looked at Ji Tianxing with complicated expressions. After the old butler accepted the gift, he expressionlessly extended his hand and invited him into the palace. Ji Tianxing ignored everyone's strange gazes as he stepped through the door and entered the Flying Dragon Palace. Inside the door was a spacious courtyard. On the left was a beautiful garden with a pavilion, a small mountain, a small lake, and a bamboo forest. Many young talents were gathered in groups of 3 to 5 as they strolled and chatted in the garden. On the right was a plaza where hundreds of guests were gathered. They were chatting and exchanging greetings with each other. The atmosphere was very lively. There were many white jade tea tables and tables placed around the plaza. On top of them were rich spirit fruits, pastries, spirit tea, wine, and so on. They were for the guests to use as they pleased. Many young and beautiful maids were respectfully guarding the plaza, serving the guests at any time. It was now afternoon and everyone could move around as they pleased. Tonight's banquet was the main event. Ji Tianxing calmly walked through the plaza and headed straight for the main hall at the back of the plaza. That magnificent main hall was the main venue of tonight's birthday banquet. Of course, only those with noble status could enter the main hall. Ordinary disciples of aristocratic families could only wait in the plaza. When Ji Tianxing entered the main hall, there were already hundreds of people gathered in the hall. They sat on both sides of the main hall and were chatting in low voices. There were more than 40 people on the left side. More than 30 of them were the leaders of first-rate aristocratic families, and more than 10 of them were the city lords of prosperous cities. Of course, the 4 experts sitting at the very top were the most distinguished. They were the 4 region lords of the human race's 9 regions. They were all at the 2nd or 3rd level of the soul cultivation realm. On the right side of the main hall sat more than 50 people. They were all famous young talents of the central state and the imperial princes of the monarch residence. Ji Tianxing looked over and saw a few people he recognized. There were the 3 imperial princes, Ling Yixian, Lu Zikong, and Lu Ziyuan. In addition, there was the chief disciple of Green Crane Valley's sword faction, Di Jianqing, and the city lord of Smoke Wing City, Qian Shanzhenwu. These 2 people had participated in the Heavenly Stellar Region Lord's election with him. They had interacted for a few days and knew each other. When Ji Tianxing sized up the crowd, everyone stopped talking and looked at him. Seeing him appear, Ling Exin, Lu Zikang, Lu Ziyuan, and the other 8 imperial princes were stunned. Their eyes were a little complicated. Many governors and realm masters who hadn't seen Ji Tianxing before frowned slightly as they sized him up with scrutinizing eyes. As for the famous young talents, they looked at him with burning eyes. Many of them had fighting spirit surging in their eyes as if they wanted to compete with him. After a while, everyone came back to their senses. Many leaders, city lords, and imperial princes stood up to greet him. Even 2 of the 4 domain lords stood up and greeted him respectfully. Those 2 were the region lords of the Yangon region and the horizontal water region. Ji Tianxing returned their greetings. After a few words of greeting, he sat down beside them. Chapter 1106. As the host, Long Ziyin was not present. The people in the main hall could only exchange greetings and talk about some things in Zhongzhou. Some people talked about the recent situation in Zhongzhou. Only 2 of the 3 ancient families were left. The Murong family's forces had been suppressed by various forces and had been shrinking their defenses. Their forces had been weakened and they had become unusually low-key. The Murong family did not even send anyone to attend the 3rd prince's birthday banquet. Some people sighed. The Duanmu family had been destroyed and the Murong family had gradually withered. Only the Cloud Spirit Palace was still as powerful as before. When the Duanmu family's destruction was mentioned, many people secretly looked at Ji Tianxing with complicated expressions. Ji Tianxing had destroyed the Duanmu family and killed Murong Lingfeng, the eldest son of the Murong family. These things were no longer a secret. The leaders of the various families, as well as the region lords and city lords, had all heard the news from various channels. Everyone was deeply curious and fearful of Ji Tianxing's strength and methods. Moreover, everyone knew that Ji Tianxing had always been close to the emperor, Long Yunxiao. In this way, Ji Tianxing and the 3rd prince were enemies. How could he dare to attend the banquet in Flying Dragon City alone? Looking at his fearless appearance, could it be that he had other motives for attending the banquet in Flying Dragon Palace? Thinking of this, many nobles and experts secretly stared at Ji Tianxing. Even the 4 realm masters were looking at Ji Tianxing from time to time, quietly sizing him up. At this time, the young geniuses on the right side of the main hall were talking about the demon clan's rampage. Someone mentioned that Yun Yao had been kidnapped by the Demon King a year ago. At that time, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao had gotten married and were going to hold a big banquet in Zhongzhou City. However, they were attacked by the Demon King midway. This incident had caused a stir in Zhongzhou and everyone in the world knew about it. It had been the hottest topic in Zhongzhou for nearly a year. Now that everyone had seen Ji Tianxing, the person involved, with their own eyes, they secretly discussed this matter. A prince mentioned that Ji Tianxing had broken into the northern desert alone and snuck into the Fiend Emperor's lair alone to save Yun Yao. After hearing the news, a few young geniuses wore looks of disbelief and exclaimed. This was especially true for Di Jianqing and Qian Shanjinwu, who had competed with Ji Tianxing before. When they heard this news, they were even more shocked. The discussions of the young elites overshadowed the conversations of the nobles and experts. The city lords and the patriarchs of the wealthy families all took over this topic and began to discuss it. Unbelievable! Prince Tianxing's strength and methods are truly unfathomable and unbelievable. Prince Tianxing is indeed worthy of being the #1 genius of our clan. He can actually create such a miracle. It's said that the Devil Clan's lair in the northern desert has a perilous terrain and numerous experts. It's extremely dangerous. I didn't expect Domain Lord Tianxing to be able to advance and retreat as he pleases. It's really miraculous. Not only were many city lords and patriarchs praising and admiring of Ji Tianxing, but they also admired him. Even horizontal Shui and Yangon territorial lord had a whole new level of respect for Ji Tianxing and flattered him. With Domain Lord Tianxing's current strength and methods, I'm afraid he's not only the #1 genius of our clan, but also the #1 genius of Middle Ground, right? No. It should be said that Domain Lord Tianxing is now the #1 genius of the continent. Domain Lord Tianxing is only 20 years old, but he already has such powerful strength and has created countless miracles. He's simply a peerless genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. Many people in the main hall praised Ji Tianxing and were in awe of him. However, more than half of them were rather critical of this, and their expressions were slightly disdainful. It was even to the extent that they muttered and criticized in secret. There are billions of martial artists in our clan, and countless geniuses emerge every year. However, how many of them can become top experts in the end? Ha, ha, ha. Who can sit in this main hall today is not a martial arts genius. So what if he's extremely talented? If he dies at a young age, won't everything be for naught? The root of humans' weakness is that they like to listen to hearsay and deliberately exaggerate things. Who would believe the so-called miracles and legends without seeing it with their own eyes? The real person is sitting here, and this group of people is still shamelessly flattering him. Aren't they ashamed? These people did not care about Ji Tianxing's presence at all and whispered to each other. Some people, while criticizing, kept glancing at Ji Tianxing to observe his expression and reaction. Ji Tianxing had been sitting indifferently. Even if he heard the people's discussion, his expression did not change and he completely ignored them. This was because he knew very well that most of the people sitting in the main hall were the third prince's subordinates and supporters. They were all hostile to him. At this time, the Shangchuan district leader, who was sitting above Ji Tianxing, suddenly thought of something and said seriously, "As everyone knows, every time an expert advances to the soul-refining realm, there will be a vision of heaven and earth. The more talented a genius is, the more shocking and bizarre the vision of heaven and earth will be. When I broke through to the soul-refining realm, it was midnight. There was only starlight in the sky, and it disappeared after 100 breaths. I'm ashamed to say that the vision of heaven and earth that I caused when I advanced could only be considered as a normal vision. However, I heard that more than a year ago, when the third prince broke through to the soul-refining realm, there was a vision of golden lightning breaking through the sky. That night, a golden lightning tore through the sky and lit up the entire Central Plains. The 100 district leader, who was sitting beside him, nodded quickly and said with a smile, "Yes. At that time, I happened to be in Central Plains. That night, I saw the vision of golden lightning breaking through the sky with my own eyes. Such an earth-shattering vision is very rare. It hasn't appeared in the past 300 years. From this, we can see that the third prince's talent is the best in the past 300 years. His future is limitless." At this point, the 100 district leader deliberately glanced at Ji Tianxing and asked with a faint smile, "District leader Tianxing, you are recognized as the #1 genius of our tribe. Now, you have also broken through to the soul-refining realm. With your talent, the vision of heaven and earth when you break through to the soul-refining realm should be earth-shattering and unprecedented, right?" There was no doubt that the 100 district leader was making trouble in public and taking the opportunity to provoke Ji Tianxing. Everyone in the main hall immediately quieted down and looked at Ji Tianxing in unison. Many people revealed curious and expectant looks, but even more people were waiting to see a good show, taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. Ji Tianxing had been resting with his eyes closed, as if he didn't pay attention to the discussions and conversations of the crowd. However, now that the 100 district leader had pointed the spearhead at him and the hundreds of people present were staring at him, he had to respond. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he slowly opened his eyes and glanced at the 100 district leader expressionlessly. He said calmly, "When I broke through to the soul-refining realm, I was in a secret realm and didn't notice any vision of heaven and earth." Hearing his reply, everyone in the hall revealed disappointed expressions and started whispering to each other. The 100 district leader suddenly smiled playfully and shook his head. So that means that Tianxing didn't cause a vision of heaven and earth. I can't believe that when the #1 genius of the human race broke through to the soul-refining realm, there wasn't even a vision of heaven and earth. Could it be that the heavens have forgotten about you?" When the people in the hall heard his words, they immediately burst into laughter. Their eyes were filled with mockery, and they were taking pleasure in his misfortune. Everyone knew that the vision of heaven and earth was a change of the way of heaven. It couldn't vary from person to person and was fair to all living things. Chapter 1107. When Ji Tianxing had broken through to the spirit-refining realm, it had been in the Eastern Mountain residence. After reaching the spirit-refining realm, he had only been observing the spirit sword and the changes in his own strength. He had indeed not seen any worldly phenomena. Afterwards, he had not paid much attention to this matter and had not felt anything unusual. Now that he thought about it, he also felt that it was a little strange. Logically speaking, with his innate talent and potential, he should have caused a world-shaking phenomenon. Could it be that the Eastern Mountain residence is an alternate dimension, and the Eastern Mountain sovereign has used extraordinary methods to isolate it from the world? Or could it be that the Tao of Kenshin that I cultivate is different from ordinary martial arts, which is why I did not cause any worldly phenomena? He silently analyzed in his heart and felt that there were only these two possibilities. When everyone in the hall saw that he was silent and deep in thought, they laughed even louder. Many young geniuses who were unconvinced also seemed to see the hope of surpassing him, and they all revealed looks of anticipation and pride. What number one genius of the human race? When breaking through to the spirit-refining realm, he did not even cause any worldly phenomena. I think his reputation is all exaggerated. Looks like his genius title will stop at the spirit-refining realm. His potential has already been exhausted, and there won't be much progress in the future. I feel that he can only be considered the number one genius below the spirit-refining realm. As for above the spirit-refining realm, he can't even be compared to His Highness the Third Prince. Not only were the young geniuses discussing, the 100-stream domain lord and Shangchuan domain lord were also discussing with playful expressions. Looking at the current situation, the title of the number one genius of the human race will soon change hands. Yes, becoming famous early does not mean that your martial arts achievements will be high in the future. It is also possible that you will die prematurely or disappear into the crowd. Ji Tianxing could ignore these young geniuses and did not care about any of their opinions. After all, he was not on the same level as them, just like how a lion would not pay attention to a mouse jumping in front of it. However, he could not ignore the criticisms of the 100-stream domain lord and Shangchuan domain lord, nor could he swallow his anger and pretend not to hear. He slowly turned his head to look at the 100-stream domain lord beside him, his eyes staring coldly at him as he said expressionlessly, 100-stream domain lord, you should shut up. His voice wasn't loud, yet it was low and sonorous, and it contained an indisputable dignity. The 100-basin master stopped talking and turned to look at him. With a mocking smile, he asked, Ji Tianxing, what do you mean? Was he angry out of humiliation? Or are you feeling guilty? Ji Tianxing smirked, revealing a sinister sneer. You're too noisy. I think you shouldn't be sitting next to me. You should change your seat. The 100-basin master was stunned. He frowned and asked, Ji Tianxing, what are you trying to do? This is His Highness the Third Prince's Flying Dragon Palace. You dare. Before he could finish, Ji Tianxing sneered and reached out his hand to grab his neck. If you're so lively, why don't you go outside and wait? As he spoke, a dazzling white light of divine soul gushed out of his palm, releasing an incomparably violent power. Although his palm didn't change, in everyone's eyes, it was like a dragon's claw, containing the power to destroy the heavens and earth. It was impossible to defend against. The 100-basin master sensed that something was wrong. He instinctively used his qi to defend himself and punched at Ling Xian's palm. However, Ling Xian's speed was extremely fast. With a swoosh, he grabbed the 100-basin master's neck. The 100-basin master's body froze on the spot. He was suppressed by an invisible divine soul and could not resist at all. Ji Tianxing picked him up easily like he was picking up a chick. He shook his hand and threw him to the entrance of the palace. Swoosh! The 100-basin master flew out in an arc in the air and landed at the entrance of the palace. With a plop, He hit the ground and rolled a few times before coming to a stop. When he got up from the ground, his hair was disheveled, his golden crown was askew, and his clothes were untidy. He looked extremely embarrassed. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he was thrown out of the palace by Ji Tianxing. This was a great humiliation. He had never experienced such humiliation in his life. At that moment, the 100-basin master was so angry that his entire body shook like a sieve. His face turned red and purple, and the blood in his body flowed in reverse. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Ji Tianxing, you've gone too far. The 100-basin master roared in exasperation. He clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. His entire body emitted a murderous aura. The hundreds of nobles and young elites in the hall were all dumbfounded. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Their bodies were so stiff that they looked like they had turned into stone. The palace was silent. No one would have thought that Ji Tianxing would be so arrogant and powerful. His way of dealing with criticism and provocation was so simple and violent. The Xianxia territory master came to his senses and was instantly enraged. He pointed at Ji Tianxing and scolded, "Ji Tianxing, you've got guts. Today is the third prince's birthday. How dare you cause trouble in public? You're insulting the third prince." The 100-basin master is a loyal official of the imperial court. You've been serving the imperial court for hundreds of years. As the new territory master, you're a junior. How dare you disregard seniority? The Xianxia territory master was still haranguing Ji Tianxing for his crimes. Ji Tianxing slowly turned his head and looked at him with a sharp gaze. He stretched out a finger and sneered at him. "I only need one finger to press you to the ground. Do you believe me?" The Xianxia territory master was at a loss for words. He swallowed all his resentment and anger back into his stomach. He didn't dare to make another sound. He was furious, but he didn't dare to do anything. He could only suppress it in his heart. He had seen Ji Tianxing's terrifying strength. How could he still dare to provoke Ji Tianxing? He didn't want to follow in the footsteps of the 100-basin master. He didn't want to be defeated by Ji Tianxing in public and lose face. Since he couldn't defeat Ji Tianxing, and he didn't dare to provoke Ji Tianxing, he could only swallow his anger and suppress all his anger and humiliation in the bottom of his heart. He glared at Ji Tianxing angrily. He was so angry that his body trembled. He couldn't calm down for a long time. Ji Tianxing ignored him and the 100-basin master. He sat down leisurely and continued to rest with his eyes closed. Looking at his calm and leisurely expression, it was as if nothing had happened. Everyone in the main hall was once again shocked by his arrogance and strength. They were dumbfounded and speechless. "Oh my God! How can this guy be so strong?" The 100-basin master, who is at LV3 soul cultivation stage, couldn't even fight back and was thrown out in public? He's too arrogant, too arrogant. Not only did he throw the 100-basin master out of the door, but he also said that he could defeat the Xianxia territory master with one finger. Oh my God! I've lived for 300 years, and this is the first time I've seen such an arrogant person. He's crazy. The rich and powerful in the hall were so shocked that their hearts were beating wildly. They exclaimed in their hearts. The young elites were even more shocked. They were so shocked by Ji Tianxing that their mouths and tongues were dry. Their blood was boiling, and their faces were flushed with excitement. Chapter 1108. Everything happened too suddenly, and the scene was too explosive. It took a long time for everyone to recover from their shock. No one would have thought that just a moment ago, everyone was still criticizing Ji Tianxing, discussing and mocking him without restraint. In the next moment, he threw the 100-domain lord out of the door with one hand and scared the Xianxia territorial lord away with one sentence. Such a simple and violent method successfully shocked everyone. The two territorial lords were so humiliated that they vomited blood on the spot, but they did not dare to attack him. They could only run out of the hall like stray dogs with their tails between their legs. The other wealthy families and young elites did not even have the right to challenge Ji Tianxing, so how could they dare to make irresponsible remarks? The main hall quieted down. Everyone was silent, and they looked straight ahead. Even if they were shocked and could not help but discuss with their companions, they did so secretly through voice transmission, not daring to make a sound. After all, Ji Tianxing had already thrown the 100-domain lord out of the door because he thought he was too noisy. If the others dared to make any noise, they would be crushed to death by Ji Tianxing. If it were others, it would be fine. No matter how strong they were, at least they had to abide by the law and respect the ways of the world. However, Ji Tianxing was a temperamental and unrestrained guy. He was not afraid of anything, and everything he did was earth-shattering. This guy even dared to barge into the Devil Emperor's lair alone. Was there anything in the world that he did not dare to do? Many wealthy families and young elites were guessing that even if the third prince was present, Ji Tianxing would not give him any face. Thinking of this, everyone was very afraid of Ji Tianxing. They were incomparably respectful. The wealthy families sitting near him were restless, as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Fortunately, Ji Tianxing did not cause any trouble. He had been resting with his eyes closed. On the surface, he looked calm, but in fact, he was secretly releasing his soul energy, extending it to the surroundings to investigate the situation. In just 15 minutes, he had investigated more than half of the Flying Dragon Palace. He had a clear understanding of the Flying Dragon Palace's layout and layout. His soul energy found that the 100-domain lord and the Shangchuan territorial lord did not leave the Flying Dragon Palace after leaving the hall. The two of them passed through several courtyards and entered the third courtyard. Of course, the two's expressions were extremely ugly. They were furious to the extreme, cursing as they walked. There was an exquisite and luxurious palace in the third courtyard. That palace was called the Hidden Dragon Palace Hall. It seemed to be Long Zai Tian's bedroom, and its defenses were extremely tight. Not only did the Hidden Dragon Palace have a powerful soul-grade array formation, but there were also over 100 guards guarding it. No one could get close to it. The two domain lords arrived at the entrance of the Hidden Dragon Palace. After showing the domain lord's golden seal, they were led into the palace by the guards. Originally, the Hidden Dragon Palace was protected by a soul-grade array. Even a soul refinement realm expert would not be able to see what was going on inside the palace. However, Ji Tianxing's soul was different from ordinary cultivators. The power of his soul was incomparably strong, comparable to that of a cultivator at the 6th level of the spirit refining realm. He was able to break through the grand formation of the Hidden Dragon Palace and investigate the situation inside the palace with all his might. At the head of the hall sat a tall, burly, and handsome young man with a resolute face. This person wore a golden robe with dragon and phoenix patterns and a golden dragon crown on his head. His pair of phoenix eyes contained a deep and vast meaning that could see through people's hearts. Ji Tianxing was no stranger to this person. He recognized him at a glance. This was the third prince, Long Zai Tian. The 100-flow domain lord and the Shangchuan domain lord entered the hall and stood still. After paying their respects to Tianxing, they recounted what had just happened with a face full of shame and indignation. After Long Zai Tian heard what had happened, a trace of anger appeared on his face. His eyes surged with a cold light. He frowned and thought for a moment, then opened his mouth to appease the two domain lords. He said in a low and dignified voice, calm down your anger. Ji Tianxing has always been arrogant and overbearing. You provoked and insulted him in public, so of course he would have such a reaction. But don't worry, I have already made arrangements and preparations. He dares to come to Flying Dragon City, so it's obvious that he wants to humiliate me. How can I let him be so arrogant? Later, you two go to another courtyard and wait until tonight's banquet begins. Try not to meet Ji Tianxing face to face. As for Ji Tianxing, I will teach him a lesson. Even if he doesn't die, he will lose a layer of skin. Hearing Long Zai Tian's words, the two domain lords' anger subsided. They hurriedly complimented, Your Highness is far-sighted. You will definitely punish that thief. With Your Highness' resourcefulness, Sooner or later you will get rid of that bastard and put him to death. Long Zai Tian nodded slightly and waved his hand at the two, indicating that they should leave and rest. After the two domain lords left the hidden dragon palace, Long Zai Tian's face became gloomy. It became darker and darker, and the cold light in his eyes became sharper and sharper. Ji Tianxing, oh Ji Tianxing, I didn't expect your lowly life to be so tenacious. You can actually live until now. When you and Yunyao got married, I used all my means and schemes to set up an inescapable net in Central State. I wanted to turn your wedding into a funeral. Who would have thought that the Demon Emperor would suddenly descend and personally attack the wedding's pillar of support, kidnapping Yunyao? I thought that you would definitely die if you broke into the northern desert alone to save Yunyao. It was impossible for you to survive. I didn't expect that not only did you come back alive, but you also saved Yunyao. Long Zai Tian muttered to himself. He secretly clenched his fists and cursed in a cold and resentful tone, "Despicable little bastard, I can't let you run wild anymore. This time you came to Flying Dragon City, I won't let you leave alive." After that, he pondered in silence for a while. Then, he waved his hand at the corner of the hall and ordered, "Tiandu, go and get that thing for me." In the dark corner of the hall, there was a 2-meter-tall, red-haired young man standing tall. This young man looked like a demon. His whole body was muscular, his aura was fierce and wild, and his pupils were blood red. He looked exactly like Tuoba Rue, but in fact, he was the combination of the heaven-swallowing beast and Tuoba Rue, the Tiandu puppet. When the Tiandu puppet heard Long Zai Tian's order, he quickly bowed and said yes. Then, he turned and walked to the corner of the hall. On the stone wall covered with patterns, he cast a spell and unlocked a seal. Swoosh! A stone door opened on the wall, revealing a dark entrance to a secret room. The Tiandu puppet stepped into the secret room and disappeared into the darkness. After about 100 breaths, the Tiandu puppet walked out of the secret room and returned to the hall with a black iron box the size of a wash basin. He held the black iron box with both hands and presented it to Long Zai Tian. Long Zai Tian took the iron box and put it into his spatial ring. He instructed the Tiandu puppet, "You stay here and prevent anyone from approaching the secret room. I need to make a trip to the main hall to greet the guests." Chapter 1109. Everything that happened in the Hidden Dragon Palace was clearly investigated by Ji Tianxing. His soul power saw the two domain lords and Long Zai Tian, and also heard their conversation. He had previously guessed that the 100 Flow domain lord and Shangchuan domain lord deliberately provoked and ridiculed him, most likely because they were instructed by Long Zai Tian. After listening to the conversation between the three of them, he was even more certain of his guess. In addition, he also heard the conversation between Long Zai Tian and the heavenly puppet clearly. When the heavenly puppet opened the array on the wall and opened the door of the secret room, he carefully stared at the heavenly puppet's movements and memorized the method to break the array. His keen intuition told him that the secret room was very important to Long Zai Tian, and must be hiding treasures or secrets. As for the mysterious box that the heavenly puppet took out from the secret room, he only paid a little attention to it and did not take it too seriously. In his opinion, the thing that Long Zai Tian was willing to take out to show to the public must not be too important. The real core treasure and secret must be hidden in the most hidden secret room. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing made up his mind to find the right opportunity to explore the secret room and see if he could find any clues. He sat in the main hall for about half a quarter of an hour before he heard the voices of the guards outside the door. "Greetings, Your Highness." The dozen or so guards guarding the door all knelt down in unison, and their tone was very respectful. The main hall was quiet, and hearing the voices outside the door, everyone looked at the door. Under everyone's gaze, the third prince Long Zai Tian, dressed in a golden robe and wearing a golden dragon crown, stepped into the main hall. Behind him was a Sky Origin Realm Guard commander, wearing a golden armor, with a dignified face, and holding a gray-black treasure box in his hands. Seeing Long Zai Tian arrive, many guests breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly got up to salute. "Greetings, Your Highness." "Greetings, Your Highness." Not only many young elites and wealthy nobles, even the horizontal water domain lord and Yong and domain lord stood up and bowed to Long Zai. Only Ji Tianxing remained seated. His expression was calm as he indifferently sized up Long Zai and the mysterious treasure box in the hands of the guard commander. Long Zai nodded with a smile on his face, and waved his hand to indicate that everyone was excused and seated. His performance was impeccable. Not only did he display the majesty and nobility of the imperial clan, but he also appeared amiable and approachable. Everyone had a good impression of him. Under the gazes of the crowd, he walked to the head of the hall and sat down on the golden throne inlaid with jade. The guard commander held the grayish-black treasure box and stood upright beside him. Long Zai looked around. His gaze swept across everyone and was full of presence. Even though his eyes swept over Ji Tianxing and saw that there were 2 empty seats beside Ji Tianxing, he didn't seem to notice any clues and his expression remained the same. After a while, he opened his mouth and said, "Everyone, today is this king's 40th birthday. Thank you for taking the time to come to this banquet. It is this king's honor that everyone can come to Flying Dragon City. It also brings light to Flying Dragon Palace. This king has not held a birthday banquet for 10 years. Today, I will take this opportunity to gather with everyone and get to know each other. After all, everyone is the pillar of my clan, the mainstay of the central region." Long Zai said a lot of polite words, making everyone smile. The atmosphere in the hall also became lively and cheerful. A few days ago, a big shot learned that today is this king's birthday and sent a congratulatory gift to this king in advance. Unfortunately, that big shot is busy with government affairs and can't come to this banquet. This king is quite regretful. Hearing his words, everyone showed a look of interest and guessed who the big shot he was talking about was. The horizontal water domain lord's status was higher, so he asked tentatively, "May I ask Your Highness the third prince, the big shot you are talking about, is it Murong family lord?" Long Zai frowned slightly, but immediately returned to normal. Shaking his head with a smile, he said, "It seems that everyone is very interested in that big shot. Although this is not the main point, since everyone has doubts, this king will say it directly. That big shot is the divine general who guards the East Sea." The horizontal water domain lord suddenly realized and quickly nodded, "So it is that big shot." Ji Tianxing was expressionless, but when he heard Long Zai words, his eyes flashed with a touch of doubt. The divine general who guards the East Sea? Isn't that Xiao Han? Could it be that Xiao Han has a close relationship with Long Zai? I have interacted with Xiao Han before. This person's style of doing things is upright, fair and strict. He doesn't look like someone who is in cahoots with Long Zai. Moreover, if he was in cahoots with Long Zai, he wouldn't have helped me enter the East Sea Imperial Court. At this time, Long Zai continued, "The gift sent by the Divine General is very special. It was left behind by a powerhouse 1,000 years ago. It is very mysterious. Unfortunately, this congratulatory gift was placed in a treasure box, and there was an ancient formation seal on the box. The skilled craftsmen and formation Dao grandmasters under my command racked their brains and methods, but they still couldn't crack the array and open the treasure box. No one knows what kind of treasure is inside this treasure box with 1,000 years of history. This king feels that it is a pity, so today, I will take this opportunity to take out this thing for everyone to evaluate and help this king brainstorm. Everyone here is my clan's top powerhouses and heroes. This king believes that with everyone's talent, you will be able to help this king open the treasure box." Hearing this, everyone looked at the mysterious treasure box in the hands of the guard commander. Everyone showed a puzzled and curious look as they carefully observed it. The grayish-black treasure box was the size of a wash basin. It was octagonal in shape and looked simple and modeled. It exuded an ancient aura. The surface of the treasure box was engraved with exquisite patterns, but because it was too old, it had long been modeled and blurred. Even so, everyone could deeply feel that the treasure box contained a vast and mighty power, as heavy and majestic as a mountain. Even if they couldn't see the treasure inside the treasure box, everyone could be sure that it was an extraordinary item. Unfortunately, the treasure box was sealed by a powerful array and no one could open it. This made everyone's hearts itch and they couldn't help but want to open the treasure box to investigate. Seeing that everyone was attracted by the treasure box, Long Tian revealed a playful smile and said, "Everyone, this mysterious gift will be the auspicious item for this king's birthday. Today, if anyone here can break the seal of the treasure box and successfully open the treasure box, this king will give this gift to him as a reward." When everyone heard this, they became even more excited and expectant. Not only were the young elites eager to get into action, even the older nobles were eager to give it a try, their eyes burning with passion. In everyone's eyes, the gift that Wang Lin Divine General gave to the third prince must be a priceless treasure. If anyone could break the seal in front of everyone and open the treasure box, not only would they obtain this treasure, they would also have a lot of face and fame in the central state. Chapter 11:10. Everyone in the hall began to whisper to each other. Many people were watching from the sidelines, but there were also some who were eager to give it a try because they were confident in their attainments in formations. A young man in a white robe was the first to stand up. He cupped his hands towards Long Tian and said, "Your Highness the Third Prince, since all the fellow Daoists and seniors are watching from the sidelines, this humble one is willing to try to break the formation first, throwing a brick to attract jade." Seeing that this person was about to make a move, everyone in the hall looked at him and began to discuss. This is the genius of the Yi family in Su City. He has reached the 6th level of Sky Origin stage at such a young age. He is quite famous in the central state. It is said that this Yi Feng is not only a martial arts genius, but also an array genius. A few months ago, he fought with an array master and defeated him. Yes, I have also heard of that matter. That is an array master who has been famous for over 100 years. Yi Feng is indeed very talented. His future is limitless. Many guests in the hall, after learning about the background of the young man in white robe, let out a burst of exclamations. Their eyes were full of expectation. Long Tian nodded slightly and ordered the guard to place the mysterious box in the middle of the hall, on a white jade table. Yi Feng walked to the table and showed a confident smile. He pretended to be modest to everyone and then began to cast the array to break the seal. His feet moved in a mysterious way, and his hands formed a spell. He constantly waved his hands and shot out streaks of dazzling light into the box. His pace kept increasing as he walked in circles around the white jade table. His hands moved faster and faster, dazzling the eyes of the people. Everyone in the hall stared at him, waiting to see how he would break the array. Many powerful people saw Yi Feng's array skills and nodded their heads to express their appreciation. The young men all had a look of envy and admiration. Even the two area leaders had a whole new level of respect for Yi Feng's performance. They whispered to each other and nodded their heads in praise. Only Ji Tianxing did not have any reaction. He looked at the mysterious box expressionlessly, completely ignoring Yi Feng. Unknowingly, half an hour had passed. Yi Feng was still circling around the white jade table, desperately casting a spell and injecting his majestic true essence into the mysterious box. He had used almost all of his means, but the mysterious treasure box was still motionless, and the sealing array did not loosen in the slightest. After a long period of continuous casting and a high-intensity infusion of true essence, his true essence was quickly exhausted, and his strength was becoming weaker and weaker. Everyone could clearly see that his face was getting paler and paler. Many people saw the clues and realized that he was using a special method to break the array. They all exclaimed and their hearts were filled with anticipation. However, this head of the family had just started to cast the array when he touched the seal on the treasure box. Swoosh! The mysterious treasure box lit up with a dazzling flame and exploded with a violent and terrifying power. It immediately sent this person flying, and he fell to the ground in a sorry state. When he crawled up from the ground, his hair and clothes were burned and curled. He looked extremely sorry and caused everyone to roar with laughter. Without a doubt, this head of the family also failed. He was also hit by the backlash of the seal and injured his internal organs. Amidst the laughter of the crowd, he left the stage in humiliation. When the hall quieted down, no one dared to try to break the array again. Everyone was watching, discussing, and exclaiming at the power of the seal. Long Tian looked around the hall and looked at the young and region lord with a playful gaze. He said with a smile, "It seems that only cultivators in the spirit-refining realm can break the seal of the treasure box. Region Lord, I have heard that your array skills are superb and that you are a world-famous array master. It seems that this seat's gift must belong to you. You must not refuse." Suddenly, everyone turned their heads to look at the Yong and Region Lord. The Yong and Region Lord's expression changed. His heart skipped a beat and he became restless. In reality, his array skills could only be considered excellent. He was definitely not a world-famous array master. But among the guests present, there were only 3 spirit-refining realm cultivators. Other than Ji Tianxing and the Lord of Horizontal Water Realm, his array skills were the strongest. Long Tian asked him to break the array in front of everyone. This was clearly to embarrass him. Thinking of this, he looked expressionlessly at the mysterious treasure box and thought to himself, "This guy Long Tian really doesn't have good intentions. He knows that I intend to get closer to the emperor, so he deliberately suppressed me in front of everyone to make me lose face. If I don't dare to break the array, he will take the opportunity to do me a favor and rope me in." You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.